Chapter 955. Yun Sure said casually. Do you also think that I'm selfless enough to forgive someone who used unscrupulous means to slander me? Jiangli said anxiously. Sure, don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I just feel that Huang Lily is pitiful. Although she's in the wrong, isn't this punishment a little too severe? Punishment? Pitiful. Yin Sure was so angry that she laughed. Jiangli, are you muddle-headed? If her father wasn't corrupt, why would he be reported anonymously? Jiangli was speechless. Yin Sure laughed again and said, if her father was just and honest, why would he be afraid that others would take advantage of him? If her father hadn't brought this upon himself, her mother wouldn't have suffered such a blow, and all these things wouldn't have happened. These are all their own sins. Don't tell me you're suspecting that I sent someone to report them anonymously and made up those baseless accusations to pin the blame on them? Jiangli was also a little angry, but she didn't dare to say anything. She only said, Sure, I'm just feeling sorry for Huang Lily. Don't be so harsh with your words. Don't hurt our friendship over such a small matter. Moreover, I didn't mean it that way. Don't overthink it. Jiangli, people have to learn to put themselves in other people's shoes. If you have empathy and put yourself in my shoes, if you were slandered and hurt like this, would you forgive her? Jiangli said, of course not. Huang Lily has gone too far. That's what you said. Moreover, I didn't harm her. This is all her family's own sins. She deserved to go to jail for taking bribes. The law is strict and fair. Since she did something wrong, she should be punished, right? Yin Sure had already made her stance clear. Jiangli sighed and said, I'm sorry, Sure. I may not be able to empathize with the hurt you have suffered, but I don't mean to ask you to forgive Huang Lily. I was only asked by her to plead on her behalf. Since you've made your stance clear, then this matter will end here. I won't mention it again. After that, Jiangli apologized profusely and hung up the phone. Yin Sure frowned. Actually, every circle had its own rules of the game. Since he wanted to survive in this circle, he had to abide by the rules of the game. If they didn't follow the rules, they would definitely be eliminated. Lin Fengtian purposely filmed all her scenes with Gu Xingze. Normally, a youth movie like this would only take Liang 3 months to film. Since Yun Sure and Gu Xingze were in their best condition, their scenes were completed within 10 days. The production crew even held a celebratory banquet for them. Yun Sure and Gu Xingze took a selfie and posted it on the internet, announcing that they had finished filming their scenes. The fans of the original novel were excited and looked forward to the release of the movie. Yin Sure couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded after working on the set for more than 2 months. This was her first movie, and the entire process was like a dream. She understood that the reason why she and Gu Xingze were filmed together was to take care of her. At the celebratory banquet, Lin Fengtian made a special feature of the behind-the-scenes photos and gave it to her. Chapter 956. Yin Sure was deeply grateful for this. Being able to work with an outstanding director like Lin Fengtian in her first movie was something she did not even dare to dream of. However, something unpleasant happened during the celebratory banquet. Yin Sure was arranged to sit at the same table as Yang Mi and Lu Jingtian. During the banquet, when Lu Jingtian stood up to make a toast, she accidentally spilled the red wine in her hand on her. This sudden attack caught her off guard. Yun Sure's body stiffened slightly as her gaze fell on her dress. The bright red wine spilled on her dress, causing it to bloom like a flower. Lu Jingtian covered her mouth in horror. Oh no, Sure, I didn't do it on purpose, Yin Sure sneered. I know you didn't do it on purpose. How could she say it out loud if she did it on purpose? Yin Sure did not even look at her as she wiped her dress with a wet towel and sighed helplessly. This dress was ruined. It was just a dress. If it got dirty, she could just throw it away. Hence, she got up and returned to the nanny van, only to find Lu Jingtian following closely behind her. She turned around warily and squinted her eyes. Why are you following me? Yin Sure, you seem to be very pleased with yourself. Lu Jingtian sneered. Her eyes were full of contempt and mockery. Yin Sure raised her brow slightly and sneered. I don't know what you mean. Lu Jingtian's eyes turned sharp as she shouted, "You do." After a pause, she suddenly said aggressively, "Do you think that you can be so arrogant just because Brother Mu is supporting you? Do you think that he truly loves you? He's only interested in you on a whim. Once this is over, do you think you can still be as doted on as you are today?" Yin Shi impatiently interrupted her. "Lu Jingtian, I'm tired of hearing such word from you." Song Inya had said such words before, too. That Missy and Lu Jingtian were close, so there was a high chance that the Missy had said something to her to disgust her. Lu Jingtian was annoyed at being interrupted, but she then sneered. "You're the female lead in this movie. Once it's released, your fame will surely soar. You won't be far from becoming famous overnight. Still, I really look down on you. If not for Brother Mu, you wouldn't be where you are today." Yin Shi blandly replied, "I'm famous because of my own capabilities." Lu Jingtian sneered as if she had just heard a joke. "TSK, what nice thing to say. If Brother Mu hadn't given you so many resources, would you have become so famous? Dream on. Why, are you that envious of me?" Yin Shi chuckled, unable to hide the teasing in her eyes. Of course. Lu Jingtian's face was contorted out of shape. How? Lu Jingtian flew into a rage out of humiliation after being exposed by her. What's there to be envious of a B*TCH who relied on the unspoken rules to get to where she is? Yin Shi was unfazed and only said faintly, "You're better than someone with mediocre acting skills and poor script skills. You can't even recite a complete line. If not for your background, Director Lin would have fired you long ago." Chapter 9:57. You're spouting nonsense. There's no such thing. Do you have any acting skills? It's all because you have that face that fits the role of the character in the script. Lu Jingtian did not realize how sour her words were. Yin Shi chuckled. There's a saying, beauty and luck are also a form of strength. After a pause, she smiled sweetly. If you're capable, why don't you look prettier than me? Lu Jingtian was stunned for a moment before she gritted her teeth. Yin Shi enjoyed the sight of her livid face and smiled. Besides, are you in a position to say that I don't have any acting skills? In terms of strength, I can't be compared to you. Lu Jingtian was exasperated. What kind of power do you have? Do you have the power to be taken advantage of? That's right. Beauty is a form of strength. So are you using your beauty to seduce Brother Mu? Yin Shi, I think you're the reincarnation of a vixen who specializes in seducing men. Yin Shi cast her a sidelong glance. Indeed, summer insects could not talk about ice. Some people were so jealous that they could not be reasoned with. She coldly said, even without Mu Yaja, I'll still use my strength to prove myself. Lu Jingtian hooted, if you're capable, don't rely on him. Yin Shi could not be bothered with her, as she maintained a cold face. Seeing her indifference, Lu Jingtian gritted her teeth. Suddenly, she thought of something and smiled contemptuously. Actually, I think you're quite pitiful. Yin Shi did not want to bother with her, though, so why waste her breath on her? With this thought in mind, she turned around, only to hear her say from behind, do you know? Brother Mu will be holding a press conference soon to announce his marriage. Yin Shi's footsteps paused. Her body stiffened slightly, but she did not turn around. She furrowed her brows slightly. Lu Jingtian took a few steps toward her from behind and spoke in a voice full of arrogance. I heard this from my dad, too. I heard that Brother Mu is holding a press conference to announce his marriage with Mu Wanru. He. In other words, he and Mu Wanru were about to get married. If he really loved you, would he marry another woman? You're just a canary that he's keeping in a cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, and when he's tired of you, it's nothing more than that. That's why I feel sorry for you. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much? Lu Jingtian was also in love with Mu Yaja, but to her, Mu Yaja was undoubtedly high and mighty. She knew that Mu Yaja and her were like heaven and earth. In her heart, he was like a god. But why? Why was Yin Shi able to occupy his heart? Receive all of his love. What right did Yin Shirshir have to have what she couldn't have? Yin Shirshir was silent for a long time. Muyaja is going to hold a press conference to announce his marriage? Why didn't he mention this to me? She did not believe that Muyaja would announce his marriage with Mu Wanru at a press conference. But if he had other intentions, he should explain it to me clearly. Should he not? Yin Shirshir suddenly clutched the corner of her shirt as a conflicted look flashed across her eyes. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Was that so? Was that really the case? On the island in the middle of the lake, he had created a mysterious romance for her. In her impression, a man like him had never put in so much effort for anyone. Chapter 958. He had also made a vow to dote on her legitimately. Every time they were intimate, she would look at him with a doting gaze that couldn't be faked. Could it be that those were all lies? Did he do all this for her to deceive her feelings? No way, right? Words could deceive the heart. However, the emotions in his eyes couldn't be deceived no matter what. She regarded him as her whole world. He, on the other hand, used the whole world to protect her. Why should she listen to someone else's one-sided statement and doubt him then? Yin Shirshir turned around expressionlessly and sneered when she saw the smug look on the other's face. Lu Jingtian was taken aback when she saw her laughing instead of being angry. You're really thick-skinned. How can you be so cheap and still laugh shamelessly? Yin Shirshir's eyes were full of contempt as she coldly said, Lu Jingtian, you're the pitiful one, aren't you? What? Do you know how Muyaja treats me? Do you know how he feels about me? Lu Jingtian choked hard. Yin Shirshir's lips curled into a smile that she found extremely dazzling. Like is different from love. Love is unconditional trust, so I believe him. As for you, who are you? Why do you have to sow discord here? Lu Jingtian laughed in anger. Sow discord? Ha! Ha ha! You're really pitiful. It seems that you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. I'm really looking forward to the day you're abandoned. You must be in a sorry state. All right then, let's wait and see, Yin Shirshir said nonchalantly. Lu Jingtian's smile disappeared at her words, and she became angry out of humiliation. Yin Shirshir, however, merely smiled and turned to leave. She clenched her fists tightly, feeling a nameless fire in her heart. She was so angry that she lost her rationality. She actually took a few steps forward and grabbed Yin Shirshir's arm. You're not allowed to leave. Did I say you could leave? I'm not done yet. She originally wanted to humiliate her, but she ended up being humiliated instead. She was filled with grievances and had nowhere to vent them. Yin Shirshir was pulled hard by her and fell to the ground. Lu Jingtian cursed coldly. She flipped over and straddled the woman before slapping her face a few times like a shrew. I'll kill you, you vixen. Born with a seductive face, she seduced men everywhere. I don't know what kind of ability you have, or what kind of charm you have. Not only is Brother Xingze so smitten by you, even Brother Mu has fallen for your seduction. I'll beat you to death, you bitch. I'll kill you. How could Yin Shirshir be willing to submit obediently? How could she be the kind to be slaughtered? Did she not know how to retaliate when Lu Jingtian hit her? Hence, she grabbed Lu Jingtian's arm with all her strength. Perhaps she had been humiliated to the extreme, but she somehow managed to push the other away with all her strength. She stood up, and Lu Jingtian was about to pounce on her again. Yin Shirshir nimbly dodged, and the latter fell to the ground, caught off guard. Yin Shirshir then turned around and pinned her down, strangling her neck. How dare you strangle me? Lu Jingtian cursed. Her usual ladylike demeanor in the production team was gone, and she was like a crazy shrew. Chapter 959. Yin Shirshir returned all the slaps she had received from her earlier and gave her a few hard slaps. If you like him, compete with him openly. I despise people like you the most for resorting to such despicable means. With that, Yin Shirshir gave her a few more slaps without hesitation. Lu Jingtian's legs kicked wildly, but Yin Shirshir suddenly choked her with a little force. Don't move! Yin Shirshir threatened angrily. Lu Jingtian's face flushed red, but she still glared at her defiantly. However, when she felt a suffocating sensation on her neck, she widened her eyes in disbelief. This woman is really using all her strength to choke me. I can't breathe. Lu Jingtian's hands clutched her wrists tightly, her sharp nails leaving deep bloody marks on the back of her hands. Yin Shi, on the other hand, did not seem to be afraid of pain or the woman's threatening gestures. Seeing that the latter was still cursing and swearing, she increased the strength in her hands. Lu Jingtian felt suffocated and could no longer utter a word. It was as if she would faint in the next second. Yin Shi saw that her face was flushed red, as if blood was about to drip out, and loosened her grip slightly. She had only pinched her to scare her. She wanted her to know that she was not to be trifled with even if she was usually docile. Lu Jingtian, I'm warning you. I won't attack unless I'm attacked, but if someone attacks me, I won't tolerate it to the end either. With that, Yin Shi stood up, glared at her coldly, and walked away swiftly. Lu Jingtian got up from the ground, feeling aggrieved and afraid. Tears streamed down her face and wet her clothes. Yin Shi's gaze earlier was too scary. Now that she thought about it carefully, she was both shocked and frightened. Yin Shi was really bold. How dare she strangle her? She had never been hit by anyone at this age. Even when she made a mistake when she was young, her parents could not bear to hit her. This Yin Shi was the first person who dared to lay a hand on her. At the thought of this, she was overwhelmed with grievances. She originally wanted to go back to the celebration party, but now she was angered by Yin Shi. Her dress was dirty, and she was in a sorry state. Besides, she had lost her appetite, so she went straight to the lounge, picked up her phone, and called her niece. The moment the call got through, she burst into tears. Song Inya was startled by her cries and hurriedly inquired about what had happened. The two of them were best friends from junior high school to university, and their relationship was very close. Lu Jingtian recounted what had happened to her niece with exaggerated details. She could not stop complaining. Inya, she actually hit me and even pinched me. You didn't see how overboard she was. She really pinched me hard. Song Inya consoled her for a while, only to hear the other lashing out indignantly. Inya, how could there be such a disgusting woman in this world? This woman is really disgusting. What right does she have to shout at me? She even said that we'll wait and see. I'm really looking forward to seeing her fall to rock bottom. I really want to see how down and out Brother Mu is when he abandons her. Jingtian, don't be sad. Did she really pinch you? Song Inya was still in disbelief. Chapter 960. Song Inya was furious. Yin Shi was really arrogant to dare offend them. Last time, it was her, and this time, it was Lu Jingtian. How could she be so arrogant? Hence, she said to Lu Jingtian, Jingtian, don't be sad. Don't worry. I'll definitely avenge you. Okay. Lu Jingtian asked with teary eyes, how do you plan to take revenge? Hee. Just listen to my arrangements when the time comes. Back home, Yin Shi went to the bathroom to take a shower. Her body was stained with mud from the scuffle with Lu Jingtian earlier. She washed her body carefully and changed into a white dress. Standing in front of the mirror, she lowered her head to look at her arm. The bloody scratches caused by Lu Jingtian were gradually fading, and there was a scratch on the back of her hand from the latter's nails. The wound was very shallow. It was just a layer of skin, so there was no need to put a bandage on it. After dinner, Yu and Xiao Chen went to the courtyard to play badminton. The two little guys had been sticking together recently. Whether it was sleeping or doing homework, Xiao Chen liked to stick to Yu. As for Yu, although she despised Xiao Chen's stupidity on the surface, she gradually opened her heart to Xiao Chen and became more cheerful. Yin Shi sat on the sofa, recalling Lu Jingtian's words in her mind. She felt inexplicably vexed. When Mu Yaja returned from the office, he opened the door and saw her alone on the sofa. The lights in the living room were off, and she was leaning against the corner of the sofa, quietly. It seemed that she had fallen asleep. He walked to her side and turned on the lights, which woke her up. She opened her eyes, still in a daze. Her eyes were half open, and she seemed to be in a daze. She looked very innocent. However, because of her pair of seductive peach blossom eyes, she looked lazy and seductive. Seeing that he had returned, she immediately sat up and raised her head to look at him. With a faint smile, she said in a hoarse voice, you're back. He glanced at the table and asked, have you eaten? Yes, I have. She suddenly added, you want to play badminton with Xiaoyi-chen? As she spoke, she looked behind him. Where's the dog? Muyaja said, in the courtyard, playing with two little guys. Oh, he sat down on the sofa and saw that her hair was slightly messy, so he reached out and tucked a few strands of her hair behind her ear. His touch quickly scalded the tips of her ears. They were red, as if she was shy. Yin Shirshir suddenly remembered what had happened today. She pursed her lips and wanted to ask something. She tentatively opened her mouth, but didn't know where to start. Muyaja saw the strange expression on her face. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What's wrong? Why you look so pale? Today, the production team held a celebration party. Yin Shirshir looked at him and opened her mouth. She wanted to say something, but stopped herself. In the end, she didn't say anything. She also didn't ask about the media conference. Since she had chosen to believe him, she would believe him unconditionally until the end. Although she didn't understand the purpose of his media conference, she didn't believe that he would announce his marriage with Mu Wanru. Although she didn't understand why he kept her in the dark, she believed that he had his reasons for doing so. Chapter 9:61. Thus, she looked up and smiled. Let's go for a walk. There was a very beautiful river in Beijing. At night, the riverside would be lit up with warm neon lights. It was very beautiful. Standing by the riverside and leaning against the railing, one could see the tallest building in Beijing. It was the symbol of Beijing, a colorful television tower. Both of them were extremely busy and rarely had time to take a leisurely stroll together. Muyaja had pushed off many things today, so he finally had some free time. The neon lights of the night market. Yin Shirshir held onto Muyaja's arm as they walked. She saw many young couples sitting on the benches by the riverside, snuggling together and whispering sweet nothings. It was very romantic. It suddenly occurred to her that she and he seemed to have had very few serious engagements. Thus, she tugged at Muyaja's sleeve and said with a smile, Muyaja, go on a date with me. Upon hearing this, Muyaja followed her line of sight and smiled faintly. We're already an old married couple, yet you still want to learn how to date like a youngster? Yin Shirshir's face darkened, and she muttered unhappily, we're not old. I'm only 24. I'm not old yet. Also, who's an old married couple with you? We've been together for so long, and we've never gone on a date like other couples. All right then, how do you want to go on a date? Yin Shirshir was unhappy. Why does it seem like I'm forcing you? Muyaja saw her aggrieved face and was amused. He crossed his arms and asked, then, Miss Yin Shirshir, are you willing to go on a date with me? Yin Shirshir couldn't help but be amused. However, she restrained her smile and said reservedly, I'll reluctantly agree. She couldn't help but think how blissful it was for them to be able to go on a date like a normal couple. If at this time, the two of them could sit side by side on a bench by the river and admire the beautiful night scenery, she would be very satisfied. Yin Shirshir was about to pull Muyaja over to the bench, but she suddenly noticed that this guy was looking at a couple not far away with a thoughtful expression. She followed his line of sight and saw a couple hugging and kissing each other intimately. The woman's clothes were half removed to her shoulders, revealing her sexy spaghetti strap, while the man's hands were unscrupulously reaching into the woman's clothes, caressing her with abandon. The two of them acted intimately as if no one else was around, occasionally letting out suppressed gasps. The two of them were so engrossed in their kiss that they didn't seem to mind the scrutiny of the passers-by. The battle was getting more and more intense. Could it be that the two of them were going to put on a show of passion on the streets? So explosive? Yin Shirshir blushed, and her heart raced as she watched. She quickly turned her head away and didn't look anymore. Muyaja turned his face. His eyes were calm as he sized up Yin Shirshir's awkward expression. His lips curled into a sinister smile as he whispered in her ear, I heard that this method makes it easier for people to feel sweet passion. Why don't we give it a try? Yin Shirshir almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face burned even hotter. What are you trying to do? Isn't it good to take advantage of the night to do some exercise that's good for the body and mind? Get lost. Yin Shirshir turned her head and casually pointed at a puff factory not far away. She changed the topic. Muyaja, I want to eat puffs. Chapter 962. Stupid Woman. She really couldn't take a joke. Muyaja held her hand and walked into the cozy little shop. When they walked in, they saw a child crouching excitedly in front of the bar counter, his watery eyes shining with anticipation. A short-haired woman stood by the side and looked helplessly at the child's silly look. She couldn't help but pinch his cheeks. Yin Shirshir looked at him and couldn't help but think of Yu Yu when he was 2 or 3 years old. Yu Yu especially liked desserts. Sometimes, when Yin Shirshir got off work early, she would take him to the dessert shop. The little guy was like that too. He would tiptoe in front of the display cabinet and look greedily at the desserts displayed in the refrigerator. But he wouldn't do that now. Yin Shirshir ordered a set of matcha-flavored puffs and sat quietly at the bar counter with Muyaja. The shop owner placed a cream puff on the bar counter. The child couldn't wait to grab a cream puff with each hand and greedily put it into his mouth. The shop owner was tickled by his cute appearance and laughed. "Your child is so cute." The woman frowned and said mildly, "How about I give the cute puff to you? This little guy is very naughty." Startled, Yin Shirshir turned to look at the woman with a smile. However, the woman patted the child's head lazily and said, "This little guy is very troublesome." With that said, the woman rubbed the child's fine hair on his forehead and complained half-jokingly, "Don't be fooled by how obedient he looks now. When he's naughty, it's really a headache." "Children, especially boys, are all naughty," the shop owner said with a smile. However, Muyaja lazily put his arm around Yin Shirshir's shoulder and said slowly, "When my son was your age, he was also very naughty." Yin Shirshir was slightly surprised. She didn't expect Muyaja to be like a normal person and chat with others. It felt a little strange. Perhaps the image of Muyaja in front of her had always been that of a high and mighty elite of the empire, the ruler of a storm of blood, like a god. Unexpectedly, he had such a normal side to him. Yin Shirshir blushed a little. What? Muyaja was a normal person. Haha, really? The woman was slightly surprised. "Handsome, how old are you? You don't look like someone who has a child." 28. Wow, so young. Is this your lover? Muyaja lowered his head and glanced at Yin Shirshir, who was leaning against him. Then he smiled gently, and his eyes were filled with affection. "Yes, she is my wife." Yin Shirshir's face turned even redder. She buried her face shyly. "She is my wife." This sentence really made her blush and her heart beat faster. Immediately, a warm current flowed into her heart. For the first time in her life, she felt such an unfamiliar warmth. The woman walked out of the shop with the child. Muyaja stared at the woman's back until they disappeared into the night. Then he slowly retracted his gaze. Yin Shirshir waved the bag of puffs in front of his eyes and asked puzzledly, "Muyaja, what's wrong with you?" Muyaja came back to his senses and smiled as he shook his head and said, "Nothing. I just feel a little envious." Yin Shirshir didn't understand the meaning of his words for a moment. "Sometimes I really envy such an ordinary and simple family," Muyaja said sincerely. Chapter 963. Yin Shirshir was stunned. It was rare to hear such sentimental words from him. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel curious. Yin Shirshir stared at him with interest. Muyaja cast a sidelong glance at her. "What are you looking at? Let's go." "Wait." Yin Shirshir grabbed his hand, picked up the phone, and pulled him to her side. She pressed her face against his cheek, raised the phone, and turned on the camera. "Come, Smile. What do you want to do?" Yin Shirshir said, "Smile. We haven't taken a photo together yet." Muyaja raised his eyebrows. "Don't put on such a serious expression. It's very scary. Smile for me." Muyaja looked at the camera blankly and suddenly revealed a cold smile. Click. Yin Shirshir took a photo and looked at it. She raised her eyebrows and said unhappily, "Muyaja, your smile is so evil." Evil? Yin Shirshir didn't care anymore. She took a few photos and sent them to her private channel happily. "What do you think of the couple's faces? Someone's smile is so evil." She looked up and asked, "Muyaja, do you have a Weibo account?" "I didn't apply for one." "Why didn't you apply for one? You're too outdated." Yin Shirshir couldn't help but criticize. Muyaja laughed. Not interested. Apply for one. I'll get it certified for you. I don't want to. Why not? It's a little troublesome. Then I'll get it for you. Muyaja was helpless. Weibo is boring. I don't understand what's so fun about it. Mr. Muyaja, your life is so boring. As she spoke, Yin Shirshir took out a small puffball and brought it to his lips. She said with a smile, "Come, try this shop's puff. It's delicious." Muyaja frowned slightly as he looked at the bubble ball. His face was full of unwillingness, but he didn't open his mouth. He didn't have a sweet tooth and had never eaten puffs before. Yin Shirshir saw the look of disgust on his face and complained, "Why do you have such an expression? I'm feeding you puffs, not arsenic. Why do you look like I'm poisoning you?" Muyaja said, "I don't like it." "Then have a taste. It's very delicious. Come on." She stuffed it into his mouth as she spoke. Muyaja was forced to take a bite. In an instant, the rich cream filled his mouth. He didn't like the taste. He couldn't swallow or spit it out. He frowned deeply. Yun Shirshir saw his face turn green and her eyes widened in shock. She asked in confusion, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Are you okay?" Muyaja opened his mouth and took a bite. The cream filled his mouth. He opened his eyes in shock. He clearly saw that the ball was round, but he didn't expect it to be wrapped in cream. He didn't like sweet things, especially cream. He would feel nauseous when he ate it. Seeing his face turn green, Yin Shirshir was shocked. She quickly asked, "What's wrong? Does it taste bad?" Muyaja held it in and didn't spit it out. After swallowing it, he suddenly felt sick of the taste in his stomach. Yin Shirshir saw that his expression was too cute and suddenly smiled mischievously. She made another puffball and waved it in front of him. Then, she took a bite in front of him. Chapter 964. It was rare for Yin Shirshir to see such an expression on his face. She found it extremely interesting and swallowed a few more puffs. Her mouth was full and cream stained her lips. Muyaja furrowed his brows and turned his head away from her. Yin Shirshir burst out laughing and said, "So you don't like cream?" Muyaja said disdainfully, "It's the way you eat that's too disgusting." Yin Shirshir fell silent. Seeing that he had walked ahead, she quickly followed behind him and offered him the puffs in a fawning manner. She raised her brows and asked, "Hee, I still have a few more puffs here. Aren't you going to eat them?" Muyaja turned his head away. "Nope." Yin Shirshir sighed and stood unhappily at the same spot. All right, it was fine if he didn't like it. Why did he have to show such an expression? It was as though he despised the food she was eating. She lowered her head and pouted her lips resentfully. She picked up the last puffball and bit it. Before she could swallow it, her chin was lifted up by a hand. Yin Shirshir looked up and saw Muyaja's handsome face suddenly magnified. His long and narrow eyes were curled up devilishly, and his thin lips were slightly parted. Right after that, he gently bit the other half of the puff she was biting. His lips gently pressed against hers, and cream flowed out. He curled his lips slightly, and the tip of his tongue hooked the cream at the corner of her lips and licked it. The kiss was so gentle that Yin Shirshir was so shocked that her face and ears turned red. She was stunned on the spot and couldn't say a word for a long time. Muyaja bit off half of the puff and looked up. There was a smug smile at the corner of his lips, as though he hadn't had enough yet. The tip of his tongue hooked the cream on his lips, and he said casually, "It tastes pretty good." She didn't know if he was talking about the puffs or if he was referring to something else with his teasing tone. Yin Shirshir pursed her lips. Her eyes were filled with shame and anger. She said coquettishly, before she could finish speaking, her hand was gently held by him. Muyaja lowered his head to look at her and asked, "Have you enjoyed yourself?" What? First date." Muyaja smiled and rubbed her hair. "It's already so late. Can we go back now?" Yin Shirshir originally wanted a nod, but when she thought that she would have to sleep after going back, she was a little unwilling. So she said, "Let's wait a little longer. It's still early." Muyaja glanced at her coldly. He reached out and handed her his watch. "What time is it now?" he asked with a frown. Yin Shirshir glanced at it and answered obediently, "It's 11 o'clock. It's already so late. I have to go back to the company." Thinking of the mountain of cases in the company, Muyaja felt a headache coming on. Upon hearing that he was going back to the company, The smile on Yun Shirshir's face suddenly froze. Muyaja, can you not go to the company? She needed him. She was already used to him. She was used to the sense of security in his arms when she opened her eyes every day. She was also used to the fresh fragrance of his hair on the pillow. She couldn't bear to part with him. Muyaja held her chin and pressed the tip of his nose against hers. What? You can't bear to part with me? I want you to accompany me. Yin Shirshir stammered a few words. Muyaja looked at her, and his eyes changed slightly. However, she wrapped her arms around his waist. I want you to accompany me. Don't go to the company. Stay at home with me tonight, okay? Okay, let's go home. Muyaja smiled and pulled her wrist to the car parked by the roadside. Be good. Go back and rest early. Chapter 965. The indulgence in his words made her feel a tinge of sweetness. Holding her hand like this, with such a tall man walking in front of her, and holding her hand tightly, she didn't know why, but there was a trace of satisfaction in her heart that even she couldn't detect. That night, she pushed aside the company's affairs. He did not stay up late, and slept with her early. In the dark, Yin Shirshir hugged his waist tightly and rested her head on his chest to listen to his strong heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. Just listening to his heartbeat made her feel at ease. Yin Shirshir could not help hugging him tighter. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, Lu Jingtian's mocking laughter rang in her mind again. You're just a canary in his cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, but when he's tired of you, that's all there is to it. That's why I think you're quite pitiful. You see him as your whole world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much? Her voice was so real and ear-piercing that it seemed to be ringing in her ears. Yin Shirshir was suddenly jolted awake by the words that suddenly flashed in her mind. Even though she was well aware that Lu Jingtian's words were only meant to provoke her, she still felt a little uneasy. Women were always insecure. In fact, she was also an extremely insecure person. Some are easily swayed by personal gains and losses. This was especially so when her man was such a high and mighty figure who could call the wind and summon the rain, a dragon among men. There were naturally many women who coveted him. Would he really be faithful to her, though? Yin Shirshir raised her head and looked at the man. At this moment, in the dark, his eyes were closed. The darkness seemed to give him something even more charming. Exquisite facial features, deep brows, and handsome silhouette, especially those long and narrow eyes. Even if his eyes were closed, they still exuded an insufferably arrogant aura of looking down on all living things. He was a man who was as arrogant as a god. Even though he was right by her side, she still felt that it was a little unreal. She suddenly leaned closer to him and planted a kiss on his thin lips. The taste of kissing him was so wonderful that she couldn't help but move her lips for a long time. She covered his warm lips with the tip of her tongue and gently pried open the gap between his lips before sliding in. The man suddenly opened his eyes and cast a sidelong glance at her. Yin Shirshir immediately raised her head. Seeing that he had woken up, her face blushed and she shyly pursed her lips. You didn't sleep? She looked embarrassed and laughed dryly. This was the first time she took the initiative to kiss him, and he actually bumped into her. Thus, she felt a little embarrassed. In fact, he had already fallen asleep. However, he had always been a light sleeper and would wake up at the slightest movement. When he opened his eyes, she took the initiative to kiss him. For a moment, he was a little surprised. He had never seen her so proactive before. What? Aren't you going to continue? His voice was hoarse, revealing a hint of suppressed gloominess. With that, he flipped over and pressed her under his body. Using the incomplete kiss from before, he kissed her deeply on the lips. He suddenly sank into her. Only when they had enjoyed themselves to their heart's content did they stop. Before he fell asleep, he hugged her. The woman in his arms was already exhausted, and her body was unbelievably limp after their lovemaking. The two fell asleep in each other's arms. Chapter 966. Early in the morning, the sky was still slightly bright. Yin Shirshir was woken up by the movement beside her. By the time she woke up, Muyaja was already dressed in a suit and leather shoes. This man always recovered his energy at lightning speed. She was still so tired, but he was already full of energy. She was a little envious of him. Seeing that she had opened her eyes, he sat by the bed and gently caressed her cheek. "Why are you awake? Sleep a little more." Yun Shirshir raised her hand and covered the back of his hand. "Are you going to the office?" Muyaja planted a kiss on her forehead. "Yes. You continue sleeping. I'm leaving." With that, he got up and prepared to leave. Yin Shirshir suddenly sat up and called out to him. "Muyaja." The man turned around. She bit her lower lip and suddenly asked, "Will you be back today?" Her face was filled with anticipation. Muyaja glanced at her and then said in a deep voice, "I'll be back early." After saying that, he closed the door and left. Yin Shirshir lay back on the bed and closed her eyes for a while before getting up to prepare breakfast. She then personally sent the two little lads to school. In the afternoon, Yin Shirshir brought the two little lads home. The weather was hot, so Xiao Yichen pestered Yu to go out to buy ice cream. Although Yu was unwilling, she could not resist his pestering and went out with him. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Yin Shirshir felt strange. Did the two little guys forget to bring money? Thus, she hurriedly opened the door. Just as she opened the door, a familiar face came into view. Song Inya. She was startled to see Lu Jingtian standing beside her niece and an unfamiliar man beside her. Yin Shirshir, it turns out that Brother Mu is hiding you in his golden house and hiding you here. She then kicked the door wide open and walked in with Lu Jingtian. Yin Shirshir took a few steps back. Her face turned cold. These two people came in a menacing manner. Their faces were unfriendly. It was obvious that they were here for revenge. With a ferocious look in her eyes, Song Inya grabbed her arm the moment she walked in. Her grip was so strong that it almost left a red mark on her wrist. It was as if she could not wait to break her bones. Yin Shirshir struggled, but with a look from a Missy, Lu Jingtian stepped forward and grabbed her other arm. This time, Yin Shirshir was completely immobilized. "Brother, come quickly. It's this B*TCH. It's her. She hit me last time, and she hit Jingtian yesterday. She shamelessly seduced Brother Mu and bullied me. It's her. Come in and take a good look at this bitch's face." Song Inya called toward the door. Following that, Song Yunshi strode in. The tall figure stood in front of her and looked down at her with a frosty expression. Muyaja rushed home and gave Song Inya a slap. Yin Shirshir looked at the man in front of her. The man in front of her was tall and lean, but his aristocratic aura was there. One look, and she could tell that he was rich and respectable. He exuded a neat and experienced aura. With just one look, she could tell that this man was from the military. He had a steel-like military aura. Song Yunshi was still young, but he was already a captain in the capital's military. He looked at Yin Shirshir and sized her up. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's beak. "Are you the one who bullied my sister?" His tone was arrogant and cold. Bully. Chapter 967. "What are you doing? What do you think?" Song Inya was the first to give her a tight slap. This slap was not careless at all. It directly slapped Yin Shirshir's face to the side, and a red handprint quickly appeared on her cheek. Yin Shirshir staggered a few steps backward. Her hair was disheveled from the slap, and she looked extremely disheveled. She covered her face, feeling a burning pain on it. She thought to herself, this Song Inya is probably relying on the fact that she has the advantage in numbers to be so overbearing. It's as if she can't wait to slap my face. Her ears, which had just recovered, immediately buzzed. "What are you all doing?" Yin Shirshir raised her head and shouted. Her eyes immediately emitted a cold glint as she glared fiercely at Song Inya. Lu Jingtian was immediately intimidated by her murderous glare. She did not know if she was pretending or not, but she pursed her lips and stomped her feet as she said to Song Yunshi, "Brother Yunshi, look. This woman's eyes look as if she can't wait to skin us alive. She's so fierce." Song Yunshi glared at her and then said coldly, "Inya, Jingten, don't be afraid. If this woman dares to do anything to you, I'm still here." Oof. This B*TCH. I'm afraid of dirtying my hands by slapping her. Lu Jingtian snorted. Even though she said that, she gathered all her strength and slapped her in the next second. Yin Shirshir sneered and said angrily, "You guys are really capable. 3 people bullying 1 person? What is this? Are you bullying me with numbers?" Song Inya was like a spoiled little princess at this moment, looking down at her condescendingly as if she were looking at a lowly commoner. What a fierce mouth. Yin Shirshir, let me tell you, no one has ever hit me in my life. You, on the other hand, are the first to hit me. Who do you think you are? How dare you try to bully me? Huh, you're just a commoner. Do you think you could do whatever you want just because Brother Mu dotes on you? Do you know who I am? How dare you hit me? Do you believe that I can chop off your cheap hand and no one will say anything? Yin Shirshir was so infuriated that she burst into laughter when she heard that. Song Inya was too arrogant. How dare she threaten to chop off her hand? Is there no law? Are you trying to use your power to oppress others in broad daylight? Law. Song Inya laughed as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. She then said coldly, Yin Shirshir, my words are the law now. If you obediently kowtow and apologize to me now, I can consider whether to let you go and not pursue this matter. Apologize? Kowtow? Yin Shirshir couldn't take it anymore. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. Why should I kowtow and apologize to you? What did I do wrong? Stubborn bitch. I think you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Don't think that you don't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is just because Brother Mu dotes on you. Inya is from the Song family. Haven't you heard of the capital's Song family? Huh. Even if you're superficial and ignorant, you should know who the current mayor of the capital is. You've offended Inya. This isn't something that can be overturned with just a few words of apology. As she spoke, she pushed Yin Shirshir to the ground and started fighting with her. Chapter 968. The Songs? So what if they're from the Song family? Do they think they can trample and humiliate people's dignity just because they have a bit of family background? Yin Shirshir grabbed Lu Jingtian's hand and, with a tug, pulled her to the ground. She then flipped her body over and pinned her on top of her, returning the slaps she had given her earlier. Lu Jingtian struggled violently, and Song Inya pounced on Yin Shirshir to wrestle with her. When women fought, it was nothing more than pulling hair and slapping faces. Song Inya and Lu Jingtian used such despicable methods to the extreme. Lu Jingtian, in particular, grabbed Yin Shirshir's hair and refused to let go. Song Inya gave Yin Shirshir a few more slaps. In the midst of the fight, Yin Shirshir's lips had a deep cut and blood was seeping out. Yin Shirshir felt a metallic taste flowing into her mouth. When she noticed that the corner of her lips had been cut, a cold glint flashed across her eyes. Song Inya was so anxious that she did not pay attention to her strength and pinched and hit Yin Shirshir. At this moment, they had completely lost their usual elegant demeanor. They were ruthless and could not wait to tear Yin Shirshir's annoying face apart. For a moment, Lu Jingtian and Song Inya had the upper hand by working together. However, what was the saying? Even a rabbit would bite when cornered. For some reason, Yin Shirshir was forced to lose her rationality. She did not know where she got her strength from, but even Song Inya and Lu Jingtian could not hold her back. Seeing that the situation had gone out of control, Song Yunshi could only watch helplessly as Yin Shirshir slapped Song Inya's face. She could not stand it anymore. She stepped forward and pushed Lu Jingtian and Song Inya away. Then, she grabbed Yin Shirshir's hands with one hand and dragged her to the center of the living room. Yin Shirshir felt the pain of her wrist being dislocated. Then, she was thrown to the ground. Her back collided with the cold tiles, and the pain made her suck in a breath of cold air. Song Yunshi's anger rose from her heart. He had always doted on Inya as she grew up, and he had never once let her get hurt. His beloved sister was being bullied by this woman. For a moment, Song Yunshi couldn't care less about his so-called gentlemanly demeanor. He viciously grabbed her neck, his eyes bloodshot. Brother, hit her hard. Beat her to death. Song Inya covered her face, which was stinging from Yin Shirshir's slap earlier, and hooted with a ferocious look. At this moment, the footsteps of the 2 little munchkins could be heard from outside the door. Yun Tianyu saw that the door was wide open and immediately heard some discordant sounds. His heart skipped a beat, and he quickly walked to the door. Just as he reached the living room, he saw Song Yunxi strangling Yun Shishir. His eyes widened in shock, and the ice cream in his hand fell to the ground. "What's wrong?" Xiao Yichen, who was behind him, rushed into the living room. When he saw the heart-wrenching scene in front of him, anger surfaced on his face. In his anger, he crushed the ice cream cup in his hand. "What are you doing? Let go of my mommy." Xiao Yichen ran forward and kicked Song Yunxi's knee. This angry kick was equivalent to 80% of an adult's strength. Even Song Yunxi, who was well-trained in the military, could not withstand it. She felt a sharp pain in her knee, and she staggered a few steps back before falling to the ground. This lad's strength is D*MN amazing. Chapter 969. Xiao Yichen spread his arms in front of Yun Shishir to protect her. However, when he saw the intruders' faces clearly, he was shocked. It was actually Song Enya and Song Yunxi. Yu also ran forward in a panic. He walked to Yun Shishir's side and squatted down. He saw that Yun Shishir's hair was messy, her face was red and swollen, and the corner of her mouth was bleeding profusely. He was so shocked that his heart almost stopped at that moment. His heart ached so much that he almost suffocated. Tears gushed out in an instant as he called hoarsely, "Mommy." Xiao Yichen turned his head and saw Yun Shishir in a sorry state. His heart ached terribly. He looked at her body and saw that it was covered with grayish-black footprints. It was a tragic sight. Only God knew what had happened not long after they left. Song Enya was slightly surprised to see Xiao Yichen. When she saw Yun Tianyu behind him, who looked exactly like him, she was momentarily stunned. How? This child looked exactly like Xiao Yichen. Twins. Her first reaction was that Xiao Yichen and Yun Tianyu were twins. When she heard how close Yu and Yun Shishir were, could it be that this child was secretly hidden by Yun Shishir? Her thoughts quickly reorganized. She quickly came up with a conspiracy theory. Could it be that Yun Shishir had given birth to twins as a surrogate for the Mu family back then and hid one of the children for her own selfish desires? She then used the child to rise in status because of her son. Was she trying to use the child to climb up the social ladder? No wonder. No wonder Brother Mu doted on this woman so much. Wasn't that all because of the child? Yun Shishir was really a shrewd woman. She actually used the child to climb up the social ladder. Since ancient times, the status of a woman in a wealthy family rose because of her son. The same goes for the Mu family. Once she figured it out, the disdain and anger on Song Enya's face deepened. She pointed at Yun Shishir and cursed. B*TCH, you're really shrewd. She's actually hiding the Mu family's heir, trying to use her son to rise in status and marry into a rich family. To think that you have such wild ambitions. Brother Mu must have been fooled by you. Shut up. Xiao Yichen and Yu said in unison. Song Yunxi stood up. When she looked up, she saw Xiao Yichen and Yu standing in front of Yun Shishir. She was also stunned. He had seen Xiao Yichen before, but who was the other child? Brother. Brother, did you see that? Song Enya tugged at her brother's arm and pointed at Yun Shishir. This woman is a surrogate for Brother Mu, but she's hiding one of the children. She's delusional to think that she can become a phoenix just because of her child. Yun Shishir is really a scheming woman. Yu calmed himself down and helped Yun Shishir to sit on the sofa. When he turned his head, his face was frosty. His clear eyes, in particular, were emitting a blood-red, murderous aura. His gloomy and powerful aura quickly spread to every corner of the living room. Lu Jingtian, who was standing at the side, felt an inexplicable chill and her shoulders shivered. Yu clenched his fists and stared at them with his beautiful eyes. Who are you? Song Enya snorted. Children shouldn't interfere in adult matters. This is my house. You're not allowed to mess around in my house. Yun Tianyu reminded her coldly in a domineering tone. Chapter 970. At this moment, she actually saw the shadow of Mu Yaja in him, especially that pair of cold and domineering eyes. It was as if they were a carbon copy. Yu pointed at the door and said in a tone that brooked no argument. Get out! Why should I get out? Song Inya lost her temper and blurted out, "You little rascal, your mouth is quite cheap. Your mother is a cheap wretch, and so are you. Get out. Leave before my patience runs out." Yu pointed at the door with a murderous glint in his eyes. "Don't appear in front of my mommy again. Seeing your shrewish faces makes me lose my appetite." He had never scolded anyone because his mommy had taught him that boys must be gentlemanly and elegant toward girls. However, seeing his mommy being bullied by these few people, he hated Song Inya to the core. How could he still be gentlemanly toward her? "You, how dare you call me a shrew?" Song Inya furiously stepped forward and raised her hand to slap his face. However, just as she was about to land on the ground, Little Yi Chin stopped her with his quick reflexes and held her wrist tightly. Yin Shishir hurriedly shielded Yu in her arms. When Xiao Yi Chin thought of how Song Inya had called his mommy and brother cheap wretches, an uncontrollable anger rose in his heart. He held Song Inya's wrist tightly and raised his eyes to glare at her. With a crack, Song Inya's wrist was dislocated by him. "Ah!" Song Inya let out a tragic shriek and retreated a few steps. She held her wrist and hid behind Song Yunqi. Lu Jingtian looked at her hand and exclaimed, "Ah, Inya, your hand is dislocated." Her exclamation attracted Song Yunqi's attention. He lifted Song Inya's hand and saw that it was indeed dislocated. Tears streamed down Song Inya's face as she whimpered in pain. Song Yunqi's eyes were filled with heartache when she heard this. She could not care less as she carried Song Inya in her arms and hurriedly left. When Lu Jingtian saw Song Yunqi carrying Song Inya away, she followed closely behind. Before she left, she turned back to glare at Yin Shishir. Just as she was about to open her mouth to scold her, Yun Tianyu and Xiao Yi Chin's cold gazes swept over her. Her heart shuddered slightly, and her lips quivered. Thus, she stomped her feet resentfully and left unwillingly. After he left, Yin Shishir finally let down her guard. Her whole body went limp on the ground. She lowered her head and tried her best to hold back the humiliation and grievance. She bit her lips and tears welled up in her eyes. Why do they have to humiliate her like this? Why could it be that with power and influence, one could disregard human dignity? Could it be that with power and influence, one could easily trample on other people's dignity? Yin Tianyu supported her by the shoulders. Seeing her in such a sorry state, his heart ached terribly. It was as if a small knife had sliced open a bloody wound on his chest. Even though he was not hurt physically, his heart still ached terribly. "Mommy, does it hurt?" Xiao Yi Chin hugged her shoulders as well. His heart ached so much that his eyes were wet. He pursed his lips tightly and hugged Yun Shishir's shoulders tighter. Yu hurriedly rummaged through the drawers and drawers to find the first aid kit. He then took out some cotton and carefully wiped her wound. Yun Shishir bit her lip and wanted to do it herself. Yun Tianyu dodged her outstretched hand, though. "Mommy, don't move. Be good and sit there." Chapter 971. Her body was riddled with scratches of various sizes, all of which were caused by her niece's and Lu Jingtian's nails. There were some places that didn't break, but there were some places where the force was too great. The skin was broken, and traces of blood flowed out. There was an especially deep cut on her elbow. Yun Tianyu dipped the cotton ball in some ointment and applied it carefully, but his tears flowed uncontrollably and landed on her arm. His heart ached so much. Why did they do this to Mommy? His heart ached so much that he felt like suffocating. He would rather bear the pain from Yun Shishir's injuries on himself. Xiao Yi Chin carefully tidied up her messy hair. He loosened her hair tie and combed it with a comb, causing a clump of hair to fall off. Ah, Xiao Yi Chin received quite a shock. His eyes turned red. He even lost so much hair. Just how intense was the battle he had just experienced? This was too much. How could they bully Mommy? Little Yi Chin gritted his teeth. His face was flushed red with anger, and he had nowhere to vent his pent-up anger. Yu carefully applied ointment on her wounds and then held Yun Shishir's face in his hands. His heart ached when he saw the bloody cut on the corner of her lips. Yu, give Mommy a kiss. Mommy doesn't feel pain. Yu pecked the corner of her lips a few times. His warm little mouth touched her wound as if it could alleviate her pain. Yin Shirshir hugged the two little lads in her arms. She was so upset that she held back her grievances. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to let them fall. Mommy, Yu Yu is here. Yu Yu will protect you and won't let the bad guys bully you. Yu Yu choked with grief. It's Yu Yu's fault. Yu Yu shouldn't have left Mommy's side. Mommy is hurt. Yu Yu is so heartbroken. Yu Yu. Yin Shirshir's voice was hoarse and broken. Yu Yu hugged her even tighter. Mommy, if you're sad, cry it out. Don't be afraid. Yu Yu is here. Mommy, cry if you're sad. Xiao Qin will be with you too. Xiao Qin hugged her waist, tried to warm her cold heart with the warmth of his body. Yin Shirshir bit down hard on her lips, refusing to show her weak side in front of the two little lads. Yu Yu hugged Yin Shirshir tightly, but her eyes were frozen. How dare he bully his mommy? Damn it, he had committed a heinous crime. On the other side, Song Inya was sent to the hospital by Song Yunqi. When she returned home, she threw herself into Jiang Qiming's arms with an aggrieved look and bawled her eyes out. In the evening, Jiang Qiming made a call and reported Yin Shirshir's crime to Muyaja. By the time Muyaja received the call, he was already on his way home. Jiang Qiming, who was on the other end of the line, did not give him any face as she loudly reprimanded him. Yaja, I heard from Inya that you have a mistress named Yin Shirshir, right? That woman is really arrogant. Ever since Inya was young, I couldn't bear to let her get hurt, but look at what happened in the end. That Yin Shirshir is really capable. She actually dislocated Inya's arm. Tell me, is this appropriate? What do you mean? I don't understand. Muyaja was also annoyed by her random questioning. You're asking me what I mean? Why don't you go back and ask the *TCH yourself? Jiang Qiming continued to denounce him. Chapter 972. Just as he was feeling vexed, Jiang Qiming continued her tirade. Inya has always been the apple of the family's eye. She may be a little spoiled, but she's not a bad person by nature. How can a young girl like Yin Shirshir be so vicious as to break Inya's wrist? We're living in a civilized society now. How can there be such an unreasonable person? How can this be? Don't blame Sister Meng for not giving you face. No matter what, I must make that woman give the songs an explanation. I'll make her come to our house and apologize. Fortunately, it's only a dislocated wrist this time. If it's a broken bone, I'll definitely sue her and send her to jail. After that, the call was hung up. Muyaja's eyes were filled with anger as he tossed his phone aside. Why did such a thing happen when he wasn't around for a day? Inya's wrist was broken? Yin Shirshir broke it? What exactly happened? Muyaja was utterly vexed. Hence, when he reached home, he pushed open the door and walked in coldly. The living room was dark and empty. He then walked to the bedroom and saw Yin Shirshir lying on the bed. The lights were off in the room, and it was cold and quiet. Her body was curled up on the bed. He did not know if she was asleep or just lying there. However, despite such a big thing happening, she acted as if nothing had happened. He should at least ask about the whole thing. Why did she hurt Song Inya? Hence he spoke. Yin Shirshir. Yin Shirshir woke up abruptly and sat up on the bed. When she saw that he had returned, a smile appeared on her face. However, when she saw the cold and sullen look on his face, the smile on her face faded bit by bit. What exactly happened between you and Inya? I heard that you broke her wrist. Muyaja was the first to ask, but he asked such a question. Hence, Yin Shirshir's expression turned colder. He called her by her full name in a cold tone, but when he called Song Inya, he sounded so affectionate. What? What does this mean? What did that mean? Could it be that Song Inya had complained to him? Is he here to denounce me? She thought that no matter what happened, he would trust her unconditionally like she did. No matter what others said to him, he would calmly ask her what had happened. In the end, he was so angry the moment he came back, as if she was the heinous sinner. Was it her fault? Song Inya was the one who barged into her house and beat her up, so why was she the one being questioned? Was he not going to ask the Songs about what his niece had done to her? Yin Shirshir pursed her lips tightly and remained silent, stubbornly keeping her mouth shut. Her cold demeanor made it seem like she was angry with him. When Muyaja saw her indifferent expression, he became even angrier. What? Being stubborn even after doing something wrong? Let me ask you, why did you break her arm? What the hell happened? You're really protective of her. Yin Shishir forced a smile and sighed. Even though her eyes were smiling, her heart was filled with an indescribable bitterness. Did your heart ache when you heard that she was hurt? That's why you came back so aggressively to denounce me, isn't it? She asked in a cryptic voice. All of a sudden, she was a little envious of Song Enya. Look, she was the one who was unreasonable first. She did something wrong and shed a few tears, and a group of people coaxed her. Chapter 973. It was so unfair. She sighed desolately in her heart. Muyaja heard her sarcastic tone and frowned slightly. However, he heard her ask back with a smile, "So, do you want me to go over and kowtow to apologize?" I heard her. Her Song family has power and influence. Do you want me to go to jail? People with a bit of power are really different. They can cover the sky with one hand. I'm really scared. How can a commoner like me fight with the dignified daughter of the Song family? He looked unhappy. He went forward and grabbed her chin. His cold eyes stared at her face. I'm asking you a question. Do you have to be so mean? Armed with a baton? Yin Shishir had tears in her eyes, but she laughed. She held back her tears and pretended to be calm as she asked, "Then what do you want me to do? I did break her hand, I did hit her, and I even slapped her. I even called her A-B*TCH and shameless." Muyaja was so angry that he was a loss for words. He couldn't help but use more strength in his hands. I'm just asking you what happened. Do you have to use such a tone? Yin Shishir only felt that her chin was about to be dislocated by him. She felt even more wronged for a moment. Before she finished speaking, her tears fell and rolled down. They dripped on the back of his hand. It was frighteningly hot. A woman's mind was so delicate and sensitive. After such a thing happened, she was looking forward to him returning home to give her a warm hug and listen to her grievances. He didn't ask for justice for her. However, when he came back, he was so aggressive and said that he wanted to listen to her explanation. What was there to explain? Why did she have so many things to explain? Yin Shishir bit her lips. Then, as if she had lost all her strength, her voice was hoarse and broken. Muyaja, what do you want me to do? Don't cry. He was so afraid that she would cry. Once she cried, he would be completely helpless. He told her not to cry, but her tears fell even more violently. Drop by drop, they rolled down like broken pearls. Liking you is such a tiring thing. You're so outstanding and unattainable. As for me, I'm so lowly as low as dust. Muyaja, liking you is really tiring. She bit her red lips and turned her face away. She didn't want this man to see her sorry state. Muyaja reached out and wanted to hug her, but Yin Shishir pushed him. She rolled and wrapped herself in the blanket, unwilling to be touched by him. She was clearly trying to avoid him, but would he allow her to escape? He walked over, lifted the blanket, and pulled her into his arms. Yin Shishir, on the other hand, struggled like a madwoman and bellowed, "Don't touch me. Get away. Stop fooling around. Be good and listen to me." He held her tightly in his arms, not allowing her to struggle. He was so strong and domineering that he didn't give her any room to resist. When she calmed down, he hugged her even tighter and said in a deep voice, "Just now I wasn't rational enough. Maybe things aren't what I thought. I came back not to convict you, but to listen to your explanation. So, you don't have to be so sarcastic with your words." Yin Shishir remained silent, but the anxiety in her eyes eased a little. Chapter 974. If he trusted her more, he would not be like this. Would he believe everything that Song Enya said unconditionally? What about her, then? Would he listen to her explanation? Still, why did trust have to be built on an explanation? Muyaja did not know what was on her mind. Seeing her silence, he leaned close to her ear and said in a deep voice, "I don't care what conflict you have with Enya, but she's the mayor's daughter. She grew up being pampered like a spoiled princess, so it's inevitable that she's a little arrogant and willful, but she's not a bad person by nature. You're older than her, so you should give in to her a little. No matter who's right or wrong between the two of you, you should at least apologize for injuring her hand." Yin Shishir's heart turned cold all of a sudden. She wiped away her tears forcefully. The grievances in her heart were like a turbulent wave that came crashing over like a mountain, completely engulfing her. She deserves it for having her hand broken, she said calmly, but her voice was cold. Muyaja's eyes turned cold. What? I said. She suddenly raised her head and met his cold gaze. She said word by word, "She deserves it for having her hand broken." Shut up. He scolded her. He could not hide the anger on his face. His eyes were so cold that they seemed to freeze her to the bone. I'll give you 3 seconds to take back your words. Take back my words? Take back my words. Yin Shirshir looked at him in disbelief. He actually shouted at her, for Song Inya's sake. The expression on his face was so fierce, and his eyes were like cold rays. It was not that Yin Shirshir was pretentious, but at this moment, she was a little doubtful. What kind of place did Song Inya occupy in his heart? Was it really just a cousin's relationship with his cousin? So much so that he came home in a rage without a word. It was obvious that he was here to denounce her. She said that she deserved it, but he actually asked her to take it back with such a bad attitude. Did he not think about it carefully? Was she such an unreasonable person? Yun Shirshir seemed to be against him. She refused to say anything. Her eyes were wide open, and tears were rolling in her eyes. However, she stubbornly refused to let them fall. Was this stupid woman try to fight him head-on? Yin Shirshir, what's with your attitude? She was stunned for a moment and almost lost her mind under that cold gaze. However, when she came back to her senses, she stubbornly raised her little face and said, "Why should I take back my words?" The man frowned. She felt wronged and angry. Her little hands gripped the bedsheets tightly, unwilling to give in. She deserved it. I take back my words. He interrupted her again. His words were cold and emotionless, so cold that it made people feel unfamiliar. Yin Shirshir's face was red with anger, and the bedsheets were crumpled in her hands. Muyaja, what right do you have to speak to me in such a tone? It's clearly not my fault. It's obviously. The long fingers pinching her chin exerted some force, and she gasped in pain. In the silent confrontation between the two, the coldness in the man's eyes became more and more dangerous. I won't repeat myself a third time. His voice became sterner, and his eyes became more sinister. Yin Shirshir, I don't have patience. Yin Shirshir pursed her lips. She could no longer hold back her tears, and they rolled down. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. I thought you were a sensible woman, but I didn't expect you to be so unreasonable. Chapter 975. Yin Shirshir suddenly laughed miserably and curled her lips. I'm vicious, ignorant, and unreasonable. I'm such a woman. Have you just realized it now? Muyaja's gaze turned even colder. She suddenly broke free from his grip and said uncontrollably, since you feel sorry for her, I'll return her hand that I hurt. Okay? I'll return her injury to her. Okay? However, she immediately walked to the wall, clenched her fist tightly, and smashed it hard on the wall. Bang! A loud sound was heard. It was heavy and powerful. Muyaja was startled. He got up abruptly, walked over to her side, and grabbed her hand abruptly. Looking down, he saw that her knuckles were red and swollen. Yin Shirshir, what are you doing? Muyaja was furious. This woman would rather hurt herself than give in to him. How could she be so stubborn? Do you have to be so stubborn? Muyaja's heart ached, and he was angry. However, when he lowered his head to look at her, he happened to see some strange marks on her shoulder. He stopped talking and pulled open her clothes. His fingers brushed aside her clothes, only to see that there were some bloody marks that seemed to have been made by fingernails. They weren't broken, but they left a deep bloody mark. What's going on? He asked. Yin Shirshir raised her hand and swatted his hand away. She slowly hugged her shoulder and squatted down. She was like a person drifting on the sea, welcoming the waves that kept crashing over, but there was no shore in sight. She felt helpless and hopeless. He leaned over and scooped her into his arms. Ignoring her struggles, he started to check on her. It wasn't just her shoulder. Her arms, elbows, knees, calves, waist. Every part of her skin that was exposed to the air had different degrees of scratches. Some of them were light and didn't break the skin. Some of them were heavy and broke the skin and had been applied with medicine. However, he could vaguely imagine how pathetic she was before. "Who did this?" he asked angrily in a deep voice. Why were there so many injuries on her body? This clearly looked like it was caught by someone. When he thought of catching, he thought of women fighting. When men fought, it was mostly a confrontation of strength, but when women fought, it seemed a little crazy. If they didn't pull her hair, they would slap her face. If that wasn't enough, they would scratch her. She had seen how ruthless a woman could be when she threw a tantrum. The injuries on his body were obviously caused by a woman. Yin Shishir lowered her head and ignored him. She snorted a few times, but did not make a sound. The man checked her from head to toe again. When she didn't speak, he lifted her chin and searched her face with his eyes. He quickly caught a glimpse of the unusual redness on her cheeks. On the little face buried in her hair, there were faint fingerprints. She had kept her head down the entire time, and if one did not look carefully, they would not have noticed it at all. The coldness in his eyes intensified, but his gaze fell on the corner of her lips, where he saw a deep cut. It was a shocking sight. In his eyes, women were fragile like delicate flowers. If he wasn't careful, he would hurt her. After all, there was a great disparity in strength between men and women. Therefore, he had always been careful with her, afraid that he would hurt her even a little. However, now, the woman he had always carefully protected was actually hurt by someone else. The coldness in his heart rose to the extreme and kept surging. Chapter 976. Connecting the dots to what had happened earlier, he could guess who had caused Yin Shishir's injuries. Still, why didn't she say anything? Muyaja was a little annoyed. Why didn't she tell him that she was injured? Is it Enya's doing? Huh. He grabbed her chin, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Answer me. She pushed him away stubbornly, her tone cold and distant. What has it got to do with you? What do you mean it has nothing to do with me? He became even more furious and grabbed her little hand that was causing trouble. With a tug, her entire body fell into his embrace. You're not allowed to say that. Yin Shishir sucked in a deep breath of cold air. She raised her head and glared at him with her reddened eyes. Fine. Didn't you want to ask? Then, I'll tell you. Who else could it be other than Song Enya? She barged into our house for no reason with Lu Jingtian and a stranger. Without a word, she came up and slapped me. She even said something like, "Is the Song family someone I can afford to offend?" Even if she chopped off one of my hands, no one could do anything to her. On what basis? On what basis can she be so arrogant and trample on other people's dignity? Isn't it because her family is powerful and influential? She's a bully. Not only that, she even wanted me to kowtow and apologize to her. What a good kowtow and apologize. She's not my parents, so on what basis should I kneel to her? That's why we fought. I've told you everything. Are you satisfied now? Are you satisfied now? The last sentence was shouted out in a hoarse voice. His voice was hoarse, as if he was venting all of his strength. Muyaja was stunned. After shouting everything, Yin Shishir panted for a moment to calm herself down. Pursing her lips, she said in a hoarse and trembling voice, "What can I do? Do I really have to kowtow to her? How lowly must I be to allow her to trample on my dignity?" The feeling of having one's dignity trampled on was worse than death. As she spoke, she curled herself into a ball and buried her face in his chest. She didn't want this man to see her at her most embarrassing moment. How nice would it be if he could find a quiet place to heal his wounds? The man hugged her. Through the thin material of her clothes, he could feel her hot breath, as well as the hot and wet traces. Don't cry. It was my fault just now. He bowed his head to her and admitted his fault. There was indeed a problem with his attitude just now. Thus, he swallowed his pride and whispered an apology into her ear. Sorry. These 3 words were even more important than 1,000 pieces of gold. He was such a proud person. He was the heir of the Mu family and the future head of the family. He had always been the pride of the heavens. He had never lowered his head to anyone, nor had he ever apologized to anyone. However, this was the only time he had personally said these 3 words. It was also the only time that she had put down all her pride in front of someone. I didn't know the truth and got angry at you. It's my fault. Don't cry, or else my heart will ache. As she cried, his heart ached as well. He had never been patient with women, especially when it came to women's tears. However, as long as it was her tears, he couldn't do anything about it. Whenever she cried, his heart would soften and he would be utterly defeated. Yin Shishir's gaze shifted slightly. She felt that the 3 words sorry coming from this man's mouth was so unreal. Chapter 977. The anger and grievance that filled his heart instantly dissipated by more than half in the face of these 3 words that were filled with guilt and tenderness. Yin Shishir was a little angry with herself. Why was she so disappointing? She had originally planned to never forgive this man in this lifetime. However, when she heard those words, the hardest part of her heart instantly softened. Muyaja carried her to sit on the bed. He held her in his arms and was about to lift her clothes. She quickly stopped him. What are you doing? Be good, don't move. Let me see. Don't look. She rejected him righteously. However, would he really listen to her even if she rejected him? He did not allow her to say anything and lifted her skirt high up. However, the scene that entered his eyes made his eyes hurt. It turned out that the scratches were considered small. All he saw were bruises of various sizes on her fair and clean body. With one look, he knew that someone had ruthlessly pinched her. This woman's body was extremely sensitive. Usually it would show in bed. However, if he did not pay attention to the strength of his hands, he would leave marks. Therefore, he had always been very careful when dealing with her. He loved her fair and jade-like skin, but now it was unbelievably damaged. Muyaja's eyes became increasingly cold. He ran his fingers over the bruises, and she immediately gasped softly. It hurts. Yu and Xiaoyi-Chin returned home after buying the medicine. They had just opened the bedroom door when they saw this scene. Yu's face turned red. She thought that her daddy and mommy were doing something embarrassing. However, when she took a closer look, it turned out that Muyaja was checking her injuries. "Daddy," he called out. Then he walked over with his head lowered and handed him the medicine to reduce bruises and swelling. "Mommy, does the wound still hurt that much?" He turned his face and faced the wall. He did not look at her, but he asked with concern. Yin Shishir could not help but feel cold. At such a young age, he already knew the difference between men and women. "It doesn't hurt anymore," Yin Shishir said. Yu pursed her lips. He had no idea what had happened, and his mother did not mention a word about it, either. If he were to find out the reason for Song Inya's visit, he would probably ignore him entirely. "Did you just go to buy medicine?" Muyaja asked. Yu and Xiaoyi-Chin nodded. "Have you eaten?" "No. I'll go get some food right away." "Daddy, do you want to eat?" "No need. I've eaten." Yu nodded and glanced at Yin Shishir. Seeing that she had calmed down a little, she left the room with peace of mind. Muyaja picked up the ointment and applied it on his palm. He then carefully rubbed the wound, slowly and gently. Yin Shishir frowned in pain. "It hurts. Bear with it. You'll recover faster after I apply the ointment." As Muyaja spoke, his movements became gentler as he applied the ointment and gently rubbed it. It was rare to see such a patient side of him. Yin Shishir's heart warmed slightly, but when she thought of the aggressive side of him when he came back, she could not help but feel angry again. She muttered, "Don't think that I'll forgive you just because of this." Muyaja raised a brow and glanced at her. He then increased the strength of his hand. Yin Shishir hissed in pain and then glared at him angrily. "Are you doing this on purpose? Be good." This woman was actually pushing her luck when he gave in a little. Chapter 978. After a moment of silence, she asked tentatively, "Do you know that Song Inya likes you?" "Huh?" Muyaja did not react at first. He raised a brow at first, but when he realized what she was asking, he fell silent. "Do you know?" She nudged him again when he did not reply. Only then did he reply, "I know." "You know." Yin Shishir was slightly surprised. "It's not that kind of like. I know what you're referring to." Muyaja frowned. Did this stupid woman think that he was as stupid as she was? Of course, he knew what Song Inya was thinking about him. Yin Shishir, on the other hand, was slightly stunned. Since he knew, why did he still have such a reaction? She snorted unhappily. "There are so many women who like you." The man glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. It seemed that there were many men who were pestering her. However, when he caught a glimpse of the displeasure on her face, he suddenly smiled. Why? Are you jealous? Yin Shishir bit her lip and did not answer. He could not help but increase the strength of his hand, deliberately hurting her and not allowing her to escape. Answer me. Yin Shishir flew into a rage out of humiliation. Don't go overboard. She raised her head, only to see the man's handsome face quickly pressing down on hers. His thin lips covered hers and kissed away her sweet breath. He gently dotted her lips. Unlike the past, where he took her by force, he kissed her lips gently. He kissed her lips, then the corner of her lips where she was cut. Then he kissed her forehead, the tip of her nose, her cheeks, and finally landed on her lips. He went deeper and deeper. She shut her mouth tightly, not allowing him to invade her lips. However, he increased the strength of his hand. She opened her lips slightly in pain and sucked in a breath of cold air. He took advantage of the situation and entered, gently sweeping her. Somehow he wanted her. However, now was not the time. What she needed more now was rest. With this thought in mind, he fiercely suppressed the desire bursting out of his body. He lowered his eyes and extinguished the flame in his eyes. After applying the ointment on her wounds, he let her rest early. After experiencing the ridiculous war in the afternoon, she seemed to be exhausted. Once her head hit the pillow, she quickly fell asleep. After covering her with the blanket, he left the room. In the living room, Yin Tianyu had just finished cooking the fried rice. Seeing him come out, he immediately went forward to ask, "Daddy, how is Mommy?" "He's asleep." He reached out and gently stroked Yu's hair. "Be good. Don't disturb her. Let her sleep a little longer." "Yes." Yu suddenly frowned and asked, "Daddy, do you know what happened this afternoon?" "I have a general understanding." Recalling the scene he saw when he returned home this afternoon, a bone-chilling glint flashed across his eyes. "Who is she?" Muyaja saw the murderous look that flashed across his face. He knew in his heart that if he let him know who did it, he was afraid. This son of his appeared to be cultured and refined, like an elegant little gentleman, but when his reverse scale was touched, he would do crazy things. "You don't have to worry about this. I'll handle it," he said. He would let Song Enya apologize personally. Chapter 979. Yun Shishir was his reverse scale, and anyone who touched her would be infuriated. Muyaja furrowed his brows slightly. This child was extremely stubborn in this aspect. He was very much like him when he was younger. However, it was undeniable that children were simple and stubborn, unlike adults who could consider all aspects. Still, when dealing with a matter, one could not be too extreme and unconventional. Xiao Chen walked over as well. He looked at him and then at the man. Muyaja and Yu looked at each other, as if they were confronting each other. Yu clenched his fists and calmed the anger in his heart. Then, he said in a low voice, "All right, I'll respect your decision this time. However, this is the only time. There won't be a next time. Consider it as giving Daddy face." "Good boy." With that, Muyaja slowly walked to the door. Xiao Chen's eyes flickered slightly. "Daddy, aren't you staying here today?" "No," he replied faintly and left. It was late at night. The night sky was especially dark tonight. It was like an endless black curtain pressing down on the sky, just like Song Enya's heart at this moment. She lay in bed, tossing and turning. Her thoughts were in a mess, and she could not fall asleep no matter what. She took out her phone from time to time. Previously, she had sent several messages to Muyaja to complain about Yun Shishir's crimes. However, after waiting for a long time, she still did not receive a response from Muyaja. She thought that he would immediately rush over and ask about her well-being after knowing that she was injured. However, she waited until late at night, but there was not a single call. It was inevitable that she felt deeply disappointed. She had a feeling that Muyaja was not as close to her as before. There was a faint estrangement and distance between them. She did not know what was going on. It must be that Yun Shishir. Song Enya's heart was filled with resentment at the thought of that woman. She felt that she had been too lenient this afternoon and should have broken one of her hands. Unable to vent her anger, She felt stifled in her chest, suffocating her. Song Inya was so angry that she sat up on the bed. She picked up the pillow beside her and ravaged it, as if it were a certain hateful face. She pinched it viciously, but that was not enough to vent her anger. His phone suddenly rang. Annoyed, she looked at the caller ID and saw that it was Mu Yaja's name. She immediately picked up the phone, happily. Song Inya picked up the call and pretended to sound sickly and weak. Hello, Brother Mu? Inya, are you asleep? Mu Yaja's deep and magnetic voice came from the other end. No, my heart hurts, and I can't sleep. Song Inya pretended to be on the verge of tears, as if she had suffered a great grievance. She looked as if she was about to burst into tears, but she was secretly delighted because of Mu Yaja's call. Is your hand better? His voice was faint, sounding as if he was concerned, but not concerned. Song Inya could not tell if he was concerned about her, so she grumbled, My hand was dislocated. It's been reattached, but it still hurts a lot. How is it painful? It's just a normal dislocation. It doesn't hurt at all. Still, she deliberately said that to make his heart ache. There was a sudden silence on the other end. The sudden silence made her anxious and uneasy. Song Inya said, Brother Mu, do you know? That Yinshirsher is too much. She's simply... Chapter 980. Song Inya was stunned. She did not expect him to say such a thing. Ever since she was young, he had always been very indulgent toward her. Even when she did something wrong at times, he would not reprimand her. This was the first time he had been harsh with her. Brother Mu, what do you mean? She pouted and said in an unhappy tone. What do you mean by I went overboard? You know very well in your heart, don't you? He paused for a moment before his tone became heavier. What happened today made me very angry. I don't want it to happen again. Still, since you're young and insensible, I won't hold it against you. After all, I'm not your parents, so I have no obligation or responsibility to teach you a lesson. However, you must apologize to her personally. He deliberately emphasized the word personally in a tone that brooked no argument. Song Inya was stunned. When she came back to her senses, her heart was throbbing with pain. She cried out indignantly, Why should I? Why should I apologize to her? I didn't do anything wrong. Don't you know very well whether you did anything wrong? His tone was unfriendly and did not give her any face. Instead, he said coldly, Song Inya, remember this. I indulge you, but it's not unconditional. Remember that there are some people you can't touch. His words were a little harsh. Song Inya was stunned. She did not expect Yinshirsher to hold such an important place in his heart. This was the first time in her life that he had spoken so harshly to her. I won't hold it against you this time, but there won't be a next time. If I find out about it again. He did not continue speaking, giving her some leeway. With that, he hung up the phone. Song Inya's hand, which was holding the phone tightly, trembled violently. By the time she realized it, she had already smashed the phone to the ground. Why should she apologize? Why? Was he so protective of her? What did he mean by indulging her unconditionally? He was not like this in the past. Song Inya buried her face in her palms sadly. Hot tears dripped on her hands as her whole body trembled. Naturally, she could not bring herself to apologize to Yinshirsher personally. How arrogant was she? In the Song family, she had always been spoiled to the point that she was out of control. It was impossible for a person like her to bow down and apologize to a person, especially a commoner with no status or background. Because of this, every time she called Mu Yaja, she would be ruthlessly hung up. It seemed that he would ignore her until she personally apologized to Yinshirsher. Song Inya was exasperated, but she refused to swallow her pride and apologize to Yinshirsher. The scenes for Yinshiatren and Yindongyu were completed. Yinshirsher received a notice and spent the next few days familiarizing herself with the score. Gu Xingze wrote a song to be used as the theme song for the movie The Green Apple. It was a warm and sweet love song sung by a man and a woman. After Yinshirsher familiarized herself with the score, she went to the recording studio to record a demo. Gu Xingze was not very satisfied with the first few demos that she recorded. He changed the score a few more times and recorded it a few more times before he was finally satisfied. As it was a theme song, there was no need to specially film a music video. He cut out a few beautifully produced scenes from the movie and recorded a scene of the chorus in the recording studio. Then, he released it as a preview of the theme song online. Once the single was released, it quickly rose to the top of the charts. Chapter 981. The song was light, catchy, sweet, and warm. Soon, it became popular. Many fans of the original novel were looking forward to the release of the movie after seeing the plot of the music video. The movie was initially scheduled to be released at the end of the year during the prime time slot. As it was targeted at the student market, it would be released during the winter holidays. Lin Fengtian had high expectations for the box office. The initial optimistic prediction was that the box office would exceed 2 billion yuan. The schedule for the next few days was packed. The movie was about to be completed and was about to come to an end. Next, the post-production began anxiously. The crew was already preparing to promote the movie before it was released. It seemed that in order to cater to the plot of the movie and promote the movie, Huanyu Entertainment intended to package Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir as a couple to hype up the movie. The so-called couple hype was the easiest way to make the headlines in the entertainment industry. It was a rather old-fashioned method. However, the public's desire for gossip was stronger. Hence, this method was tried and tested. Qin Zhou accepted several jobs for Yun Shishir. Among them, there was a reality show called The Love Diary. It was a rather important draft. The Love Diary was a reality show produced by Qingguang's satellite TV with imaginary love as its selling point. In the program, popular celebrities formed a group of imaginary lovers and went on an imaginary date program. After a few episodes, it quickly became a popular first-tier reality TV show. Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir would be the second imaginary lovers. Because it was Gu Xingze, they were given the spotlight as a pair of lovers. Of course, the so-called reality show actually had a script. After all, they had to create some gimmicks and suspense. Otherwise, where would the topic and viewership ratings come from? The filming of the show was initially scheduled for next month. Before that, the script would be sent to Yun Shishir. When the time came, she would just have to follow the script and record. When Yun Shishir heard that Qin Zhou had accepted this show for her, she was a little speechless. Qin Zhou glanced at her. Why? You don't want to? Sure. You have to be more careful. Many female celebrities want to film The Love Diary with Gu Xingze and ride on Gu Xingze's popularity. Hee, then I'm really lucky. Shishir said and stuck out her tongue. It's good that you know. Qin Zhou knocked on her head and said, I've been busy these past few days. There's an event tonight. What announcement? Starlight Quietness Distance. Perform well for me. Qin Zhou said as he took out a thin stack of scripts and handed it to her. This is the script. Take a look at it first. The script was filled with questions that the host would ask. She just had to memorize how to answer them. Starlight Quietness Distance was a well-known large-scale entertainment talk show. The lineup of hosts was also very luxurious. Among them, Liu Fei, who was the head of the lineup, was the top in the entertainment hosting field. He had a very deep foundation in hosting. Among the popular hosts, he had the highest cultural background and was very humorous. Under his leadership, the atmosphere of the program was humorous and relaxed. While making people laugh, he would often say a few thought-provoking words of wisdom. Most of the time, it was very relaxing to be on a show. There was no need to deliberately create jokes or gimmicks. Generally speaking, a show would invite 10 guests, split into two halves. Yun Shishir and Gu Xingze were assigned to the first half. Chapter 982. This was a prime-time slot with the highest ratings. Along with Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir were Liu Jingtian, Li Jiuxian, and Yangmi Qin Zhou picked out a gown for Yun Shishir. It was especially suitable for her to wear a socialite gown as it made her look classy. As if on purpose, Qin Zhou also picked out an outfit for Gu Xingze. It was the same color scheme as Yun Shishir's gown. When Yun Shishir rushed to the waiting room and saw Gu Xingze's outfit, she blushed. This was clearly a couple's outfit, right? What a pair! Qin Zhou exclaimed in admiration. Yun Shishir frowned. Qin Zhou, if you do this, my Weibo will be flattened by his fans later. Silly. It's better if it's flattened. That means there's something to talk about. Celebrities are most afraid of not having anything to talk about. How could she protest? Not long after this hype was launched, her Weibo was already besieged by Gu Xing's army of fans. It would be a wonder if she would not be flattened once this show was broadcasted. Can't you just not watch it? Qin Zhou laughed. I'm afraid that someone will send me razor blades. Yin Shishir replied truthfully. Qin Zhou, in fact, she had already received several threatening letters. That was why she was still fearful. Before the recording of the show, one of the hosts, Lu Fei, specially met with Yin Shishir. This was the first time they met, and Lu Fei gave off a refined and courteous vibe. He also had a good impression of Yin Shishir. Unlike other newcomers, Yin Shishir was especially polite. It was the kind of courtesy and respect that came from the bottom of her heart. At first glance, he felt that this young lady was not bad. He had seen the trailer of the movie, but when he saw Yin Shishir in person, she seemed to be more classy than when she was in front of the camera. He had a simple conversation with Yin Shishir. After going through their lines, he said a few more words of concern and left. The program began recording and broadcasting. Because it was a live broadcast, there was no room for any mistakes. The director of the program specially went through the script with Yin Shishir before she went on stage and repeatedly warned her, this is a live broadcast. Try not to make any mistakes. In a live broadcast, any mistakes can't be edited out. The recording began. After Yin Shishir and Gu Xingze went on stage, Lu Fei mainly focused on the topic of the green apple. Everything went smoothly. Then, the host and the guests were divided into two teams and played a small game to test the actors' tacit understanding. A guessing game. One person received the taika and was responsible for performing the words displayed on the question in the form of gestures, while the other person was responsible for guessing the answer. Within 60 seconds, Gu Xingze and Yin Shishir obtained the highest score in the competition. Lu Fei smiled and praised from the side. Xingze and Shishir have a great tacit understanding. They got 8 out of 10 questions right. I couldn't even guess a few questions, but Shishir guessed them right away. Their tacit understanding is enviable. The director gestured off stage, and the audience immediately cheered to add to the atmosphere. Yin Shishir looked at Gu Xingze shyly and smiled shyly. She thought to herself, it's because I memorized the answers before going on stage. In the beginning, when she watched the program, she felt that most of the games in the program were quite interesting and there were often funny segments. In the end, they were all scripted. From the big questions to the management of every expression, there was a script. Chapter 983. Oh, a gossipy look appeared on Lu Fei's face. What about the kissing scene? Is it done in one take too? Li Jiuxian immediately stepped forward to play along. They often NG their kissing scenes. The audience below the stage screamed and cheered again. Lu Fei pretended to be surprised and covered his mouth. His eyes darted around before he looked at Gu Xingze with a teasing look and asked with a smile, Xingze, you didn't do it on purpose, did you? Another host, Xiao Can, chimed in. If it were me, I'd definitely NG on purpose. Ha ha ha. Adultery, adultery. The hosts looked at each other. It was obvious that there was a hidden meaning in their words. The production team had already prepared the script beforehand and intended to use the scandal between Gu Xingze and Yin Shishir as a hype point for the show. Right at this moment, Lu Jingtian suddenly spoke from the side. Actually, in the kissing scenes between Xingze and Shishir, Xingze is in the right state most of the time, but Shishir has a lot of NGs. As soon as she said this, everyone was stunned. Gu Xingze frowned slightly, but when the camera turned to him, he quickly regained his smile and looked at Lu Jingtian with a hint of warning. Lu Jingtian's words were not part of the script. There was no such thing in the script. However, by saying this, she was deliberately trying to embarrass Yin Shishir. From the start, the production team intended to create a couple between Gu Xingze and Yin Shishir. The script was also for Gu Xingze to seduce Yin Shishir. Lu Jingtian's words implied that Yin Shishir had deliberately NG'd during the kissing scene, and that she was deliberately trying to defame her. If this sentence was not connected well, one could imagine what kind of news the media would create the next day. Yun Shirshir deliberately NG'd, shamelessly and shamelessly, was suspected of seducing Gu Xingze. In this way, Yun Shirshir's status would be lowered. Generally speaking, when it came to creating hype for a couple, the female celebrities were usually more reserved. Lu Fei broke out in a cold sweat, but his quick reflexes allowed him to quickly answer her question. Shirshir purposely made NGs during filming? Oh, you're really something. Everyone turned to look at Yun Shirshir to see her reaction to this. Below the stage, Mushi was worried for her. Yun Shirshir quickly reacted. She pursed her lips and said shyly, because filming with Xingze is too stressful. Pressure? Yes. It's because he's too handsome. When he stands in front of me, it feels a little surreal. That's why I sometimes get distracted. Yun Shirshir covered her mouth and looked a little nervous. Besides, Xingze is more handsome in real life than on TV. When he stands in front of me, he has a very special aura. I'm afraid that I won't be able to act well, but the more I think about it, the more pressure I feel. She tactfully took over the topic. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Standing at the side, Qin Zhou's expression softened a little as his eyes revealed his approval. Lu Fei also said, "The Green Apple is Shirshir's debut film. In this movie, Shirshir contributed her first on-screen kiss. I heard from director Lin that Shirshir is a very talented actress. This movie may just be a starting point. I'm also looking forward to Shirshir contributing more outstanding works to us in the future." Applause came from below the stage. Chapter 984. Lu Jingtian continued. I remember there's a scene that the director wasn't satisfied with despite repeated takes. Lu Fei then sternly said, "The director is very strict about the film industry. He's especially strict when it comes to filming. I heard that he has a bad temper when he's working." Xiaokan added, "The director has always had high standards for movies and strives for perfection. I think this attitude is very rare." The topic returned to the main topic. However, it was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but Lu Fei seemed to have neglected Lu Jingtian and downplayed her existence. He skipped the few topics in the script that revolved around Lu Jingtian. Lu Jingtian was especially indignant. She tried several times to bring the topic to her, but she failed. She was just like a clown, trying her best to make her presence known. Lu Jingtian's manager was furious after the show ended, but given her status, he dared not voice out his anger. Lu Jingtian was also very annoyed. She had blurted out those words without much thought. While she hated herself for being unable to keep her cool, she also hated Yun Shirshir for being so tactful in responding to her sharp provocation. Qin Zhou walked up to Yun Shirshir and praised. "Shirshir, you did well today. Isn't that all thanks to Mr. Qin's guidance?" Yun Shirshir complimented with a smile. "Lass, you have a glib tongue." Despite his words, his ears were very pleased. After the show was broadcast, it naturally caused a sensation. However, the topic did not revolve around the accident in the show. Instead, the audience's discussion revolved around Lu Jingtian and Yun Shirshir. On Weibo, the topic Lu Jingtian ostracizing Yun Shirshir jumped to the top of the search list. The production team was also very dissatisfied with Lu Jingtian's behavior of not following the script. During the replay, they deliberately exposed her ugly side. Many fans were talking about how, on the show, Lu Jingtian would intentionally or unintentionally ostracize Yun Shirshir and lead unfavorable topics to Yun Shirshir. She seemed to be very scheming. This was different from the innocent image that Lu Jingtian portrayed in front of the camera. Lu Jingtian's sharp tongue was instantly exposed on this show. Yun Shirshir's fans even went to Lu Jingtian's Weibo to criticize her for being scheming, and deliberately ostracizing the newcomer by making things difficult for Yun Shirshir. Lu Jingtian's fans on Weibo dropped by tens of thousands overnight. She didn't have many fans to begin with, and they were all zombie fans. However, all of them were genuine fans. Lu Jingtian was livid. She originally wanted to embarrass Yun Shirshir on the show, but she did not expect to suffer a double loss. In fact, she was so jealous because her team wanted to be a couple with Gu Xingze. Gu Xingze refused. However, when it came to Yun Shirshir, she actually agreed. It would be strange if she wasn't angry. Why did Guxingze give such good resources to Yin Shirshir? If all of Yin Shirshir's resources were given to her, she would definitely be more popular than Yin Shirshir. How could Lu Jingtian not be furious? Of course, this was all in the future. On this day, Qin Zhou arranged to meet Yun Shirshir at the company. When Yun Shirshir arrived at the company, Qin Zhou had just finished a call. His expression was a little serious, but there was a hint of excitement and ambition in his eyes. Chapter 985. Yun Shirshir raised her eyebrows, clearly surprised by his cautious attitude. What's the matter? Just ask. Qin Zhou pursed his lips, hesitating whether he should ask or not. He tapped his fingertips on the table a few times and said, maybe this question is a little presumptuous, but I still want to know more. Please don't take offense. He paused for a moment and went straight to the point. I want to know, what's your relationship with young Master Mu? Yin Shirshir was stunned. Why do you ask? Because I feel that young Master Mu treats you differently, Qin Zhou said honestly as he fiddled with the thumb ring on his finger. He was indeed different. At least in Qin Zhou's impression, Mu Yaja was a heartless man. Why did he have such an impression? Back when Huan Yu was acquired by Disheng, in order to curry favor with this rich and powerful boss and to obtain more golden resources for their artistes, many top managers had secretly sent him a list of artistes and organized it into a roster. It was a common thing to give away women in the vanity market. Whenever Mu Yaja personally picked someone, it meant that she would have more opportunities to rise up the ranks. However, it was said that after Mu Yaja saw the list, he threw it aside and no longer asked about it. He had never had a woman by his side. He was a typical example of walking through a field of flowers, but not a single leaf touched him. He was clearly in charge of a huge entertainment empire, but he had never had the slightest intimate relationship with any woman in the circle. Yin Shirshir was the first and only one. He had also asked around about Yun Shirshir's position in Mu Yaja's heart. However, no one in the company knew. They only knew that Yin Shirshir seemed to be a little special. They could not explain why she was special. Yin Shirshir pondered for a moment. She did not know why Qin Zhou asked that. However, since he asked, she answered honestly, lovers. Qin Zhou narrowed his eyes. I heard that you have a child. How did you know? Yin Shirshir was slightly surprised. How am I going to survive if I can't even find out the background of the artists under me? Qin Zhou was a little dissatisfied with her belittling. He knocked on the table and asked, is this child young Master Mu's? Yin Shirshir gritted her teeth and said, yes. I heard that a mysterious girl gave birth to a child for the Mu family 7 years ago. The youngest son of the Mu family, Mu Yichen, is not the child of Mu Wanru and Mu Yaja. He's a surrogate. After Qin Zhou finished speaking, he paused for a moment and looked at her meaningfully. Yin Shirshir looked a little embarrassed, but she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Everyone who was involved in the matter of surrogacy for the Mu family was very tight-lipped. How'd he find out? Yin Shirshir sighed and said, actually, there were 2 children at that time. The older one was taken away when he was born, and the younger one was not breathing when he was born. Later, the child was saved after the emergency treatment. My father pulled some strings to hide it from the Mu family. Qin Zhou suddenly understood. In that case, you can rely on your children to rise in status and marry into a rich family. Rich and powerful families value inheritance. You have 2 children by your side. That's a great asset. Yin Shirshir looked indifferent. I don't want to. You don't want to? Qin Zhou was a little surprised. Why not? Yin Shirshir fell silent. Chapter 986. One had to know that in this industry, it was an abyss of suffering. If it were any other woman, she would definitely try her best to get into a rich family. After all, rich families valued a woman's innocence more. Yin Shirshir narrowed her eyes slightly and took a deep breath. Qin Zhou's question was very straightforward and even a little prickly. Therefore, she couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. However, she understood that Qin Zhou didn't mean any harm by asking this question. He didn't mean to make things difficult for her, nor did he want to hurt her. He just wanted to know her relationship with Mu Yaja. He was her manager, so he had the obligation and responsibility to investigate her background thoroughly. She didn't want to hide anything from him. She looked up and looked straight at him with her clear eyes. She said calmly, I don't like the feeling of living under someone else's roof. When Qin received this answer that was both surprising and not too surprising, his face was a little stunned. However, these words were very much like her style. Yin Shi said calmly, glory, splendor, wealth, fame, and benefits. Who doesn't chase after them like a flock of ducks? But if a person lives in this world and has to rely on a man to live, then how can they protect their dignity? I don't want to live like this. Qin smiled happily. He obviously appreciated her answer. Very good. I really like your strong personality. He suddenly leaned forward slightly, his eyes like torches. Do you know my ambition? He asked. He lowered his voice, and his voice was as deep as a magnet. Yin Shi shook her head. With a smile, he leaned back in his chair and said unhurriedly, in these 10 years, I've conquered half of Gu Xing's empire. But I want to use my ambition on you. Are you willing to cooperate with me? Of course I am. Before this, I want you to be clear. I don't care if the entertainment industry is a tiger's den or a big dive vat. I want you to know that this is an industry where the strong prey on the weak. The weak have no dignity. Since you've stepped into this industry, I want you to do your best and not be a dabbler. I don't like the attitude of a dabbler. After Qin finished speaking, he took out a script from his side and handed it to her. Yin Shi raised her eyebrows and took the book. She saw that it was a very thick script. It was very thick, at least twice as thick as the script of the Green Apple. Flipping to the first page, there were black words on a white background. This drama was a palace drama that had recently been preparing for casting. The title was tentatively set as Lethal Beauty. It was also adapted from a best-selling masterpiece and was a popular IP. His novels alone had sold 3 million copies and were sold overseas. 3 million copies. What did that mean? If a physical book could sell more than 30,000 copies, it would be able to enter the best-selling list. 5 years after the novel was released, it sold 3 million copies, which proved that the novel had a considerable fan base. It was said that the copyright alone was sold for a sky-high price of 10 million. This was unprecedented, and it set a new record for IP copyright fees. What was even more shocking was that they had only bought the copyright of the novel and had not even confirmed the actors. Yet, all the major TV channels and networks were scrambling for the broadcasting rights. A certain satellite TV channel had even offered 800 million in copyright fees. There's good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Qin seemed to be in a good mood and deliberately kept her in suspense. Yin Shi was also happy to support him. Then I'll listen to the good news first. The good news is that you have a chance to compete for the female lead. Chapter 987. The bad news is that there are a lot of people competing with you for the female lead role, and most of them are A-listers. Moreover, in comparison, your chances of being elected are slim. Qin said truthfully. Slim? Yin Shi was stunned. She didn't understand how slim her chances were. Very slim. Why do you say that? Because Han Yuyan and Lin Ji are on the shortlist for the female lead. Yin Shi was shocked. She finally realized how slim her chances were. There was no need to elaborate on how high Han Yuyan's status was in the industry. Lin Ji, on the other hand, was the hottest costume actress in the past 2 years. She was second to none. Speaking of Lin Ji, she had been in the industry for more than 3 years. Since her first movie, Rose Night, she shot to fame. With the Best Actress award, her status skyrocketed overnight. After that, she acted in many costume dramas and was known as the top costume beauty in the entertainment industry. Her facial features were soft and beautiful. She was elegant and had a unique aura. She was very suitable for the costume. When a new version of The Return of the Condor Heroes aired last year, her role as Xiao Longnu in the drama made her famous. She became an A-lister. However, these advantages were nothing to be afraid of. Qin had confidence in Yin Shi. Her looks were also very sculpted. She might not be worse than Lin Ji in costume. It could even be said that she was better than Lin Ji. He was more worried about Lin Ji and Han Yuyan's background. Han Yuyan was Huan Yu's A-lister. Her status was there. Moreover, she had been in the industry for many years. Her fan base was very deep. In order to compete for the female lead role in Lethal Beauty, she even planned to postpone her wedding. Lin Ji was an artist under Chingguang Entertainment. Although she had only been in the industry for a few years and didn't have a strong foundation, she had a strong background. However, Han Yin's background was more powerful than Lin Ji's. The problem was that the copyright of Lethal Beauty was bought by Chingguang Entertainment first. Since Chingguang Entertainment had spent a lot of money to buy the copyright, they naturally wanted to promote their artists. Chingguang's veteran artiste was Meng Lan. However, ever since Meng Lan married into a rich family, she had been in a semi-retired state. Very quickly, she fell from the top artiste altar. Therefore, Chingguang was determined to make Lin Ji the second Han Yuyin. Just from the amount of resources Chingguang had spent on Lin Ji in the past 2 years, one could see it. She was trying to make Lin Ji the new big sister of Orange Light. Since Chingguang Entertainment had bought the rights to the drama, Qin Zhou guessed that they had already decided on the female lead. It was very likely that Lin Ji would play the role. The current film and television industry was different from the past. In the past, the choice of actors was mostly in the hands of the director. But now, in most cases, the investors had the final say in the selection of actors and actresses, and the director had no right to interfere. Unless it was a director with funding or a very famous gold medal director, such as Lin Fengtian. Not every director was so lucky to have the right to choose the male and female lead in their hearts. More often than not, the investors would arrange for people to join the cast. Even if there were no characters, they would create a character and insert it into the cast. Chapter 988. The director of Lethal Beauty was Gu Xiaoyang, an experienced director in the film industry. During the preparation stage, other than the few connections the investors had placed in the team, he had sent a group of messages to the few female leads he had in mind. Alas, Yin Shishir was not among the 5 names listed. As a newcomer, her movie had not yet been released, so Gu Xiaoyang did not have a deep impression of her. He only knew that this newcomer had good potential, but she was not special enough for him to personally invite her. Among the 5, Lin Ji was one, and Han Yuyin was the other. Out of the 5 female stars, 4 of them were under Huan Yu. As an entertainment empire, Huan Yu had many big names under its banner, and the flowers were flourishing and blooming. 3 of the 4 top female stars in the film industry were from Huan Yu, which showed Huan Yu's influence. Inviting Huan Yu's artist to be the female lead candidate was tacitly approved by Chingguang Entertainment as the investor. On the surface, it seemed very selfless, but when Ji Lin heard the news, he was furious. Was this a blatant attempt to win fans? First, they used Huan Yu's artist to hype up the show. Then, when it came to the final selection, they would choose their own artists. Not only did they hype up the show, but they could also use Huan Yu's A-list female stars to hype up their artists. Wasn't this killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Chingguang's method was quite scheming. But so what if they knew it was a blatant attempt to win fans? A show was a good one. Even if the chances were slim, they had to seize every opportunity. When Qin Zhou found out that the show was about to be filmed, he immediately asked Gu Xiaoyang to meet him. He threw him an olive branch and went straight to the point, recommending Yin Shishir. Qin Zhou had a lot of connections in the industry and had a good relationship with Gu Xiaoyang. Because he had spoken, Gu Xiaoyang gave Yin Shishir the opportunity to audition. Even if it was just an audition, the chances were slim, but it was still not easy to come by. As for whether she could be chosen, Qin Zhou did not have much confidence. He even guessed that the show was tailor-made to promote Lin Ji. After listening to his detailed analysis, Yin Shishir was a little disappointed. I think it's more than slim. It's impossible. Lin Ji is an artist from Chingguang. How could Chingguang choose an artist from Huan Yu as the female lead? That's a big blow to your morale. Qin Zhou smiled playfully and cast a sidelong glance at her. Sure, pick up your fighting spirit. The chances are slim, but it's not hopeless. I'm a bit curious. What are you curious about? Yin Shishir asked. Since this drama is a popular IP, why didn't Huan Yu buy the adaptation rights of this novel? Sure. Some things are not as simple as you think. The benefits involved were very deep. Moreover, one of the reasons why Huan Yu didn't get the rights to this drama was because Huan Yu's recent focus was on the movie IP. Most of the funds were invested in the movie script. Recently, Huan Yu bought a Tomb Raiding IP and is about to start filming. Originally, I wanted to arrange for you to join the cast, but after weighing the pros and cons, I decided to let you audition for Lethal Beauty. Qinzhou also carefully read the Tomb Raiding script. This drama was based on the famous tomb raiding novel, Strange Tomb. The theme of tomb raiding was very popular. Chapter 989. Lethal Beauty, on the other hand, was different. The script for Lethal Beauty was more or less completed. It had been changed into a 90-episode-long series. The schedule had also been finalized. It would be aired during the summer prime time. Lethal Beauty's influence was far greater than Creepy Tomb's. Its popularity was definitely not something that Creepy Tomb could compare to. Plus, it had a long exposure time and a wide audience. It was a good opportunity to build popularity with the audience. After Qinzhou finished his analysis, Yun Shishir was already dumbfounded. She suddenly understood why Qinzhou was called the #1 golden agent. He deserved it. Just the way he picked the script showed that he had a keen eye for it. Even if it's a waste of effort, we can't miss any opportunity. What if your audition results amaze Gu Xiaoyang? Who knows, he might choose you. You have to know that Gu Xiaoyang is a famous director with 2 high ratings. He has a lot of power. Okay, I'll try. Yin Shishir took the script from him. Actually, Qinzhou suddenly frowned. He wanted to say something, but stopped. Actually what? Nothing. Qinzhou shook his head and smiled faintly. He did not say anything. He originally wanted to say, actually, it's just a female lead. If we can get Muyaja to help us, it won't be a problem. But with Shishir's personality, she might not be willing. She was strong-willed. She must want to get the role with her own abilities. Yin Shishir smiled. Qinzhou, don't worry. I'll do my best. I won't let your efforts go to waste. Qinzhou smiled. When she got home, she began to study the script carefully. She finished reading it overnight. It was a rare and good script. In fact, palace dramas had always been a popular theme for TV dramas. In the past 10 years, 5 of the top 10 palace dramas had made it to the top of the top 10. Palace dramas had a very large audience. If the reputation and ratings were good, as the female lead, she would definitely win the hearts of the audience. The main storyline of the script mainly told the story of Qin Changle, the daughter of a concubine in the prime minister's residence, assisting the prince to ascend to the throne. She was given the title of empress, but in the end, she was betrayed and ended up in the cold palace. She suffered humiliation and died with hatred. After death, she was reborn 20 years ago. She took revenge domineeringly and finally reaped happiness. The characters were distinct, and the plot was intertwined. The theme was political intrigue and palace strife, which was fascinating. Yun Shishir was certain that if this drama was well made, it would definitely become a new milestone in palace drama. It was a good script. Yun Shishir sighed again in her heart. She couldn't hide her excitement. She didn't have much hope for the audition, but after reading the script, her fighting spirit was reignited. Taking advantage of the short break after the completion of the filming of The Green Apple, she studied the script 3 times and carefully highlighted the key points. Soon, Yun Shishir received the script for the audition. The script for the audition was that 15 years after Qin Changle was banished to the Cold Palace, she was faced with the Emperor's imperial edict to kill herself. She was heartbroken and resentful. Using this as the script for the audition was a great test of the actor's tension and knowledge of the lines. The day before the audition, Yun Shishir was extremely nervous. She tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. She felt very regretful when she thought that this script might already have a female lead. She really wanted to get the chance to play the female lead. However, when she thought of the frightening fan bases of Lin Jiyu and Han Yuyan, she thought that the competition was too great. Chapter 990. On the day of the audition, Yin Shishir woke up early and rushed to the audition venue after she was done with her preparations. She was in the second group and was in the same batch as Lin Ji. However, the latter was the first and she was the last. As for Han Yuyan, she was in the first group. When she arrived at the venue, she wanted to find out about the first group's audition. The result was that Han Yuyin had been kicked out. Han Yuyin was kicked out. Yin Shishir had seen the name list. Did she not hear that Han Yuyin's performance was commendable and that the director was satisfied with it? Yes, the director said that he was satisfied, but it was just a superficial compliment. If he directly said that she was kicked out, wouldn't it be embarrassing for her? The director definitely didn't want to offend her. Even if she was kicked out, he had to make it look good. Of course, this is insider news that I heard, so it can't be fake. Yun Shishir trusted her assistant's efficiency, but it was indeed a little surprising that Han Yuyin was eliminated in the first round. Why was she eliminated? Her assistant answered, "She looks old. After all, her age is obvious." Moreover, in order to enter Hollywood, Han Yuyin's stylist intended to make her look like a top actress. Hence, the director felt that she was too old and didn't have the feeling he wanted. Yin Shishir pouted. Chengguang Entertainment is really scheming. On Weibo, when the production team released the news of Han Yuyin's participation in the female lead audition, it blew up instantly. Han Yuyin's fan base was not to be underestimated. The support for Han Yuyin to be the female lead was very strong. The production team clearly wanted to trample on Han Yuyin and boost Linji. Han Yuyin must be very depressed, but she had no choice. This was indeed a good script. If there was a chance, she would definitely not let it go. Mushi brought Yin Shishir to the dressing room. On the way, they brushed past a woman in a luxurious dress. Yin Shishir glanced back, but did not pay much attention to her. Hence, she followed her assistant to the dressing room. Someone called out to her from behind. "Stop right there." Yin Shishir stopped in her tracks suspiciously. She slowly turned around and looked at the woman in front of her, who was dressed in a gorgeous phoenix coronet. It was a little unfamiliar, but he had some impression of it. She rarely paid attention to dramas and movies, so Mushi was the first to recognize her. She whispered into her ear, "Shishir, it's Linji, Linji." Mushi was visibly agitated. It was no wonder that Linji was her goddess. At such a young age, she relied on her beautiful looks and superb acting skills to defend her place in the entertainment industry. Yin Shishir looked at her, only to see that the woman in front of her was also sizing her up with a cold gaze. "You are." Linji paused for a moment. Yin Shishir. She remembered her. He was a new topic on Weibo. She seemed to be the target of Huan Yu's recent efforts. Yin Shishir had just debuted, and Huan Yu had already poured resources into her. Most of them were gold resources. Yin Shishir nodded politely. "Hello." Compared to her, Yin Shishir's attitude seemed a little more arrogant. "Are you here for the audition too?" Mushi keenly sensed the hostility in her eyes and suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. She had seen the interviews, and the media was full of praises for her character. They said that she was gentle and pleasant, but now her good impression of her had been shattered. Yin Shishir lightly replied, "MHM." Chapter 991. In other words, she seemed to be implying that Yin Shishir was shamelessly trying to compete with her for the female lead role. She was clearly trying to embarrass Yin Shishir. Linji was obviously hostile towards her. She did not know at first that Yin Shishir would be participating in this audition. Despite the fact that the female lead had already been internally selected for this audition, Linji was still displeased with the actress. Why? It was because they had both debuted not long ago, were both highly supported by the company, and had the same style. Huan Yu had used Yin Shishir's popularity to hype her up since her debut. Of course, Yin Shishir was unaware of this. The actress was aware of it, though, and she was still brooding over it. No one was willing to let their popularity be used by their competitor. Mushi broke out in a cold sweat, only to hear Yin Shishir calmly say, "MH, this show is very popular, so I'll join the fun." Her relaxed and teasing tone easily dispelled the awkward atmosphere. Linji was stunned, and her gaze on Yin Shishir deepened. Her assistant urged her from the side. It was almost her turn for the audition. Linji snorted, then turned around and left. Mushi's lips twitched. "I've decided not to be a fan anymore." "Huh?" She fumed. "That actress is so arrogant. She even deliberately made things difficult for you. I'm so angry." "All right, don't be angry." Sure, you must work hard and get the female lead role. Let's see if she still dares to look down on you. Yin Sure, however, was honest. I don't think I have a chance. Mushi was stunned. Are you that unconfident? I was still hopeful that the audition would be a success, but judging from her tone earlier, it seems that she's really the female lead, Yin Sure said. Then, are we still participating in the audition? Of course. Why not? Chinjo fought for this role for me, so how can I let him down? Even if I can't get the female lead role, I can at least make myself known. Yin Sure said optimistically. Get acquainted. Puffed. Mushi was tickled by her optimistic side. When she entered the dressing room, the stylist's attitude became much colder when he heard that she was an artist from Huanyu. He casually threw her a set of white clothes and left. Yin Sure opened the plain white dress. She thought about the luxurious dress Lin Ji was wearing. Indeed, it couldn't be compared. Mushi said gloomily, "That's too much. Lin Ji's clothes are so pretty, but why do you look like morning clothes?" Yin Sure raised a brow and suddenly smiled. Mushi, help me with my makeup. My makeup skills aren't that good. You don't have to put on too much makeup. Just put on a thicker layer of powder. Make your face look more haggard. Make your eyes bigger. Make your eyelashes longer, and make your lips a little more chapped. That's easy. With that, she got to work. Not long after, the makeup was done. Yin Sure looked at the mirror, and a haggard yet beautiful face came into view. Since the audition script was a cold palace drama, the makeup could not be too gorgeous and should look more haggard. She was the last in the second group. Yami suddenly walked in and was surprised to see Yin Sure there. She was even more surprised to see her in a white shirt and haggard makeup. Sure, are you here for the audition too? Yin Sure smiled when she saw her. Yes. Chapter 992. Yin Sure explained, the audition script is a scene in the cold palace, so cold palace? She raised a brow suspiciously. Sure, did you get the wrong script? What? The audition isn't a scene in the cold palace. You must have gotten it wrong. She told her the truth. Yin Sure, however, was stunned. Wrong? How could it be wrong? This script was given to her by Chinjo. Alarmed, Mushi quickly called the manager to verify the situation. He, however, said, the script is from Chingguang Entertainment. Why? Is it wrong? Mushi replied, I just asked around. The first group's audition seems to be for the female leads. Confirm it. It seems that someone cheated. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Chingguang Entertainment purposely gave me a wrong script. What should we do then? Mushi was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Yin Sure, prepare for the second group's audition. Someone knocked on the door to inform Yin Sure to prepare for the audition. The scene was in a deadlock for a moment. Mushi was even more anxious now. At this critical moment, the script was wrong. What should she do? Why don't we don't audition? She suggested. Yin Sure exchanged glances with Yangmi, pursing her lips. She calmly said, let's try. Huh? Yangmi naturally understood what Yin Sure meant and said, since you're here, regardless of whether the script is right or wrong, if you leave like this, the production team will definitely think that Sure is throwing her weight around and disrespecting the production team. If this matter gets out, Sure's reputation will be tarnished. When Yin Sure reached the audition hall and walked in, the director's team, who were seated at the table, was stunned and frowned one after another. The audition script was for the confirm it scene, so why was she dressed so plainly? Her makeup was also so haggard. Gu Xiaoyang looked at the name list. Yin Sure. It turned out that she was the newbie recommended by Chinjo. Her looks and aptitude were not bad, but Gu Xiaoyang said coldly, Yin Sure, didn't you read the script? Which part is this? You didn't even read the script? He had no professionalism at all. Let's go, you're out. The producer patted the table. Yin Sure bit her lip and said in a deep voice, I've read the script. When the producer heard this, he questioned, then why are you dressed like this? Yin Sure couldn't possibly say that someone was behind this, could she? This producer looked very crafty and would definitely think that she was shirking her responsibility. All right, I see that you didn't prepare seriously at all. You don't value this audition at all. You're out. The producer spoke, as if he didn't intend to leave her any leeway. Yin Sure bit her lips and frowned slightly. Although she was unwilling, she couldn't say anything. Just as he was about to leave, Gu Xiaoyang suddenly spoke. Hold on. Yin Shishir paused and decided to give him some leeway. Gu Xiaoyang flipped through the script and asked, "Which part are you preparing for?" Yin Shishir replied, "The part where I was sentenced to death in the cold palace." "All right, you can start then." The producer beside them was anxious. "Director Gu, this person obviously doesn't value this audition. Why are you? At least let her finish her performance." Gu Xiaoyang looked a little impatient. "Are you the director, or am I the director?" The producer kept quiet. Gu Xiaoyang could tell that Yin Shishir had read the script and had read it very carefully. Chapter 993. Her snow-white outfit and haggard face were very suitable for the scene. Moreover, she was recommended by Qin Zhou. At the very least, he had to let her finish her performance for his sake. Yin Shishir thanked him gratefully. "Thank you, director, for giving me this chance." Gu Xiaoyang folded his arms and casually said, "Start your performance. You have 3 minutes." Yin Shishir adjusted her emotions and quickly got into character. 10 years. 10 whole years. It's me. I've been by your side, risking my life with you, assisting you wholeheartedly. Finally, you ascended to the throne and obtained this vast empire. But what did I get? What did I get? I gave my all for you without any complaints or regrets. But in return, I was imprisoned for 10 years. Now, you actually want to kill me. Nailan Yi, you're so heartless. Yin Shishir's eyes were ashen, but deep within them, there was a sinister hatred. The dramatic expression on her face was full of tension. Gu Xiaoyang crossed his arms in front of his chest and watched in silence. His expression was profound, and no one could tell if he was happy, angry, or sad. When Yin Shishir left the audition hall, Mu Shi, who had been waiting outside, immediately went up to her. "How was it? Did you pass?" Yin Shishir looked at her calmly. "No. You're eliminated directly?" This result was too surprising. She was 100% confident in Shishir's acting skills. Mu Shi widened her eyes in shock. "How did you get eliminated directly? Even if there was a mistake in the audition script, with your acting skills, it's impossible for you to be eliminated in the first round." "Did the director say anything?" "The director didn't say anything," Yin Shishir replied. "It was the producer who announced the result directly." "Sigh, I should have known that the producer and investor are in cahoots. It's clear that Qingguang has already decided on Lin Ji as the female lead." Mu Shi scratched her head gloomily. Yin Shishir said, "So, it's not surprising that I'm eliminated." After removing her makeup, Yin Shishir and her assistant left. In the car, Yin Shishir received a call from Qin Zhou. "Shishir, I heard from Director Gu that you were eliminated?" "Yes." Yin Shishir's expression was very calm. After all, she had expected this, and it was not unexpected. "Don't be sad. Director Gu just called and praised you. He said that your acting skills are very good, but he revealed that this audition is just a gimmick and that they have already decided on the female lead." Yin Shishir said, "It's Lin Ji, right? You know?" "Yes. Therefore, I'm not surprised by this result." Qin Zhou continued. "Director Gu said that if you're willing, he can use his authority to cast you as the second female lead. What do you think? Will you consider it?" "Second female lead?" In the script, the second female lead was the female lead's elder sister, Qin Xianhui. She was the #1 beauty in Western Liang and the daughter of the prime minister. She had a vicious heart and was extremely shrewd. On the surface, she looked gentle and generous, but in reality, she was an extremely vicious woman. In her past life, she was the mastermind behind Qin Changle's death. After Qin Changle's rebirth, Qin Xianhui continued to plot against her. In the end, she suffered the consequences of her own actions. It was a role that tested one's acting skills but did not please the audience. Still, it was a very important role. Qin Xianhui's role was entirely to support Qin Changle's character. Yin Shishir frowned but did not say anything. Chapter 994. What is it? Qin Zhou calmly read a name over the phone. Mu Yaja. Yin Shishir could not help but clench her fists. She really liked the script of Lethal Beauty. However, the entertainment industry was like this. It was not about ability. More importantly, it was about background, means, and backing. This role should be a piece of cake for Muyaja, right? However, Yin Shirshir could not help but feel hesitant. She did not really want to use Muyaja to get this role. The headquarters of Dishing Financial Group was located in the most luxurious area of Beijing's economic and trade center. The 99-story commercial building gave people a sense of majesty. Standing on the top floor of such a majestic building, one would feel as if they were looking down on the world. Of course, she did not know how terrifying Mu Yaja's net worth was. It was said that the entire Mu Group was equivalent to the country's commercial lifeline and the most important financial core in Asia. If the Mu Group made any moves, the entire financial world would be shaken. The Mu Group monopolized the country and was extremely powerful. Both the legal and illegal sides of the world occupied the vast territory. Mu Yaja held the power of life and death in the Mu Group. In the future, he would definitely become the owner of this highly anticipated business empire. In a luxurious office, Mu Yaja held the phone and leaned elegantly against the back of the chair. One of his hands was tapping on the table absent-mindedly. His long and narrow eyes were half closed. A deep and powerful voice came from the other end of the phone. It sounded a little angry. Yesterday, old Master Song called me and said that as an elder, you did not know what you were doing. He actually made his granddaughter suffer because of an actress of unknown origin. I don't care who that woman is. The Song family is the most important chess piece in your journey to becoming the head of the family. If you have the Song family's help, your position as the head of the Mu family will be even more secure. Mu Yaja's eyes were tinged with a trace of coldness, but his mellow voice was as cold as ice. Second uncle, don't interfere in this matter. I know what I'm doing. On the other end of the phone, the man's voice suddenly became gloomy. It's not that second uncle didn't tell you, but now that the Mu family is in trouble, you can't take any risks. You know, you're just the heir now. You haven't grasped the real power of the Mu Jia. I've always thought that you're smart and would never make a mistake. But don't you think you've handled this matter inappropriately? Of course, the Song family's old man may be exaggerating, but given Song Inya's status, I don't believe that he would be bewitched by a woman and offend the Song family. Mu Yaja lifted his sexy lips, his voice cold and full of sarcasm. Since when did I, Mu Yaja, need to rely on the Song family to strengthen my position? Since I can sit in this position, I can continue to sit in it steadily. The man suddenly fell silent and did not make a sound. Mu Yaja chuckled. Second uncle, your and Grandpa's era is over. It's my era now. The man sighed and said indignantly, It's up to you. Don't disappoint second uncle, though. Second uncle still believes in your ability. Handle this matter well. I know what I'm doing. Chapter 995. Even the faint breathing and whispering outside the door could be easily heard. He raised his eyes and looked at the door, saying coldly, Come in. As his voice fell, the person outside the door seemed to hesitate for a long time. After hesitating for a long time, he pushed the door open. Yin Shirshir strode in. The moment she stepped into the office, she could feel the strange, heavy atmosphere. This office was shockingly huge. It was more than 100 square meters. The decoration was simple yet luxurious, but standing in it, one could easily feel an invisible pressure. Even their breathing could not help but be suppressed. Yin Shirshir looked at the man sitting at the desk. At this moment, he was elegantly supporting his chin with one hand as he stared straight at her. His eyes were no longer as gentle as they were in the morning. They were so deep and dark that one would not dare to look directly at them. His expression was as cold as ice. His icy gaze swept past Yin Shirshir and Mu Shi, who were standing at the door. A strong aura swept over them. Mu Shi was intimidated by his gaze and broke out in a cold sweat. The emperor-like aura emanating from him made her feel timid. She could not help but hide behind Yin Shirshir. Chairman Mu Shi had just opened her mouth when she saw his pair of eyes as dark and gloomy as a black fog. They were very deep, very dark, and cold. She could not help but lower her head in shock, not daring to speak. Get out. I don't like to be disturbed when I'm working. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and knocked on the table. His cold gaze fell on Mushi. His tone was very calm, but it revealed a majestic aura that made one unable to look directly at him. Just a few words made Mushi break out in a cold sweat. Yin Shirshir said to her, "You can leave now." Mushi left the office. Muyaja's expression eased a little. "Why are you here?" Muyaja swept a glance at Yin Shirshir. However, at this moment, he was clearly not in a good mood as his face was gloomy. He did not like to be disturbed when he was working. This was especially true when he had an argument with his second uncle earlier. He was in a very bad mood. "Am I disturbing you?" Seeing this, Yin Shirshir saw that the man was constantly emitting a low pressure. She probed, "Then should I go out too?" Muyaja suddenly raised his arrogant chin, and the corners of his lips curled up. "What are you doing here?" Different. The man in front of her was completely different from the Muyaja she knew. Sometimes this man's aura was really domineering. At this moment, Muyaja was like a high and mighty emperor. Just one look from him was enough to make people feel fear. Muyaja looked at her deeply and suddenly said in a deep voice, "Come here." Yin Shirshir didn't dare to move. She had never seen such a cold and unfeeling side of this man. His expressionless face always made people feel that he was overly cold. Seeing that she still didn't move, Muyaja said, "Come here." Yin Shirshir was startled by this indifferent tone. She stood there in a daze, feeling a little helpless. She didn't dare to go over, afraid that he would swallow her whole. She hesitated for a moment and then slowly walked to his side. The chair was turned around, and he pulled her into his embrace. She cried out in surprise as her waist was firmly held by him, and her whole body was locked in his embrace. Chapter 996. The man bent down and bit her earlobe. His long fingers pinched her chin, forcing her to look up at him. Muyaja's voice was low and charming. "What's with that look? It's as if I'm going to eat you alive." "Because you don't seem to be in a good mood." Muyaja closed his eyes slightly, and a trace of fatigue appeared on his face. "I'm a little tired." He had 3 video conferences in the morning, followed by a series of tedious affairs. It was inevitable that he felt a little frustrated. Yin Shirshir reached out and rubbed his temples. The moderate amount of strength was just enough to relieve his faintly tense nerves. "Are you feeling better?" she asked when she saw him frowning. "I'm feeling better." Muyaja opened his eyes, grabbed her chin, and kissed the corner of her lips. "Are you looking for me for something?" Yin Shirshir nodded. Suddenly, she shook her head. Muyaja laughed. He did not know what she wanted to say. "Is there anything?" Yin Shirshir did not mention that matter to him in the end. She wanted to get rid of him and get the role in Lethal Beauty for her. However, after thinking for a while, she did not say anything. She curled her lips and smiled. "It's nothing." "Why?" "I want to see you." "Can't I?" "Did I disturb you?" "Are you unhappy?" Muyaja scratched the bridge of her nose. "You can come whenever you want." After that, he bent down and kissed her lips. It was just a small bite. The tip of his tongue ran over her lips wantonly. It was a charming kiss. She pushed him away. "When do you get off work?" 5 o'clock. "Okay, I'll wait for you." After that, she went back to the sofa obediently. She picked up a magazine and flipped through it. She planned to wait for him to get off work and go home together. Minyu suddenly knocked on the door and walked in. He saw Yin Shirshir sitting on the sofa. She smiled and nodded. Then, she came to him and said slowly, "Boss, CEO Wang of Huafeng Appliances invited you for dinner tonight." "I'm not going. But this dinner is very important. You've already rejected him 3 times. If you reject him again, I'm afraid you won't be giving him face. This isn't good, right?" Muyaja frowned. CEO Wang of Huafeng Electric Appliances had invited him 3 times, but he had turned him down one by one, because someone was waiting for him at home. Therefore, he turned down all the dinners that night. Yin Shirshir looked up. "Muyaja, go ahead." He raised his eyebrows. "Can I go with you?" Muyaja raised his eyebrows. "You're willing to accompany me?" "Yes." On the way to the dinner, Yin Shirshir sat in the front passenger seat and said nervously, "This seems to be my first time attending a dinner party. I'm a little nervous." Muyaja, "This stupid woman. It's just a dinner party. What's there to be nervous about?" Yin Shirshir turned her head and asked, what do you think I should do if I get forced to drink? Muyaja raised his eyebrows and rubbed her head lazily. He smiled and said, I like to see who dares to force you to drink. Yin Shishir was stunned. The so-called dinner party was a social gathering at the table. It was a clash of interests. As the CEO of Mu Group, this kind of thing was commonplace. In China, there was such an unspoken social circle. A group of people would sit at the table and talk about business and interests over wine. Chapter 997. This time, it was nothing more than the boss of a financial group who had made a wrong decision a few days ago and caused quite a bit of trouble. Hence, he quickly gathered a group of friends and booked a private room at a 5-star hotel, hoping that Muyaja would lend a helping hand. At the table, Yin Shishir finally understood the meaning behind Muyaja's words. It was different from what she had imagined. Indeed, no one dared to force her to drink. After Muyaja introduced her, the group of men in suits looked at her in awe. Even if she was drinking fruit juice, those men still toasted her by the glass and downed it in one gulp without any hesitation. Their actions were so nimble that it was like moving clouds and flowing water. Their gazes towards her were also filled with fear and trepidation. All right, was she that scary? Or rather, was the big boss sitting beside her that scary? How would those people dare to force Yin Shishir to drink? They couldn't wait to compliment her. They had a favor to ask of Muyaja, so if they were careless and made him unhappy, their company would be completely destroyed with just one word from him. Even if they were all sprawled on the table and carried back, they wouldn't be able to force Yin Shishir to drink. After the dinner, someone enthusiastically suggested that Muyaja and Yin Shishir be invited to the most luxurious KTV in Beijing, Las Vegas, for a karaoke session. Yin Shishir's heart skipped a beat. Las Vegas? It was said that it was the most expensive entertainment club in Beijing. The smallest private room inside had 2 floors and was especially luxurious. Out of curiosity, she wanted to go and see what the most luxurious entertainment club in Beijing was like. Hence, she gave Muyaja a very cute, expectant, and yearning look. Her sparkling eyes were like a little puppy trying to please him. Muyaja's eyes twitched fiercely. The thought of going to the KTV to listen to those old men wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, those strange lights, those deafening sound effects, and those fawning faces gave him a terrible headache. However, she seemed to want to go. Muyaja said, "It can't be too late." Everyone cheered, but when they saw the boss's icy gaze, they immediately shut their mouths. Muyaja and Yin Shishir were escorted to Las Vegas by a group of people, as if they were the stars surrounding the moon. Upon hearing that the CEO of Dishing Financial Group was coming, the manager of Las Vegas booked the biggest KTV room for them. Yin Shishir held Muyaja's hand in amazement. She looked left and right, feeling that everything was new to her. After all, she rarely came out to play. When she was in university, it was popular for her classmates to gather and sing together, but she didn't have much time to go out and play. Muyaja glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. He saw that the corners of her lips were slightly raised. Even Muyaja, who was in a bad mood, couldn't help but be affected by her cheerful mood. Even the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Since this woman liked it, he would let her do it this time. The waiter respectfully led them into the KTV room. The moment they stepped in, Yin Shishir let go of Muyaja's hand. Muyaja couldn't help feeling a little stunned. Looking down at his suddenly empty hand, he suddenly felt a little disappointed. Chapter 998. Yin Shishir had never seen such a high-class entertainment venue. It had a huge LCD screen and 3 levels of high-end sofas. It was like a small opera house. There were 12 microphones alone. The luxurious facilities were amazing. Looking around, there was not only a small bar on the first floor, but there was also a wine cabinet, a small stage, 2 private bathrooms, 2 small living rooms, and a private room. After wandering around the private room, Yin Shishir returned to Muyaja's side. Just as the men were about to start singing, Yin Shishir looked up at Muyaja and said, "The so-called most luxurious entertainment venue in Beijing is just so. Let's go back." Muyaja's lips twitched. Everyone almost fell down and vomited blood. Didn't she know that it cost 1,000 yuan an hour here? Didn't she know that in order to please Muyaja, they had already thought of their own songs along the way? This girl must be toying with them. Muyaja raised his eyebrows. You're leaving just like that? Yin Shirshir pursed her lips and said, You look very tired, so I want you to rest early. Muyaja's eyes warmed. So it was because of this. Hence, he smiled. That smile was the most dazzling in the world. It was charming and moving. Let's sit for a while more. He would just take it as accompanying her. Muyaja staying behind was naturally something that everyone was happy to see. However, as he stayed behind, something happened. Although these old fellows were not young anymore, they were still full of vigor. In order to please Muyaja, they had even taken out the 18th class's signature song. Yin Shirshir could still bear it at first, but the more she listened, the more she couldn't sit still. My passion, hey? Like a fire. Huh. Burning the entire desert. Uh-huh. At this moment, the big boss of an electronics company took off his suit jacket and held a microphone in one hand. He opened his mouth and howled like a wolf. Every time he sang a line, everyone would shout along, and the atmosphere could be considered to have reached a climax. However, on the other side, it was already covered in ice and snow. It was a lonely old man's KTV. This was probably it. Muyaja, who was sitting in the main seat, was still relatively calm. His face was still able to maintain a calm and composed expression. Yin Shirshir, on the other hand, felt as if she had been struck by lightning when this man sang. She wanted to laugh, but she couldn't show too much of an expression. Otherwise, it would be disrespectful to others. Even when he was about to sing, she still had to praise him against her will. CEO Wang, I didn't expect you to have such a good voice. Oh no, she suddenly regretted staying. When the song was finally over, Yin Shirshir collapsed on the sofa and heaved a sigh of relief. She could not even laugh, as her stomach hurt terribly from holding it in. Then, a few people pushed the microphone to a relatively young man. It was said that he was the son of a consortium. Everyone praised him, saying that this young master sang well. This song, A Chinese Ghost Story, was earth-shattering. It was like heaven and earth, but not on earth. A Chinese ghost story? Was it Zhang Guorong's? Yin Shirshir was instantly interested. This song was very nice. It was affectionate and pleasant to the ears. It was a classic among classics. However, when the man opened his mouth, Yin Shirshir was so frightened by his voice that her legs turned to jelly. This song really gave off the feeling of a ghost when he sang it. Chapter 999. Who was the one who sang such an earth-shattering song? That's right, this man's song was simply earth-shattering. Demonic sound, devastation, devastation. It was simply a heavy blow to her body and mind. After he finished singing, Yin Shirshir clutched her chest with some internal injuries, but she still forced a smile and gave him a thumbs up. She sighed and said, This song should only exist in the heavens. Admirable, really admirable. The man was a little embarrassed by her praise. He scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. Thus, after sitting for half an hour, the demonic sound bombarded Yin Shirshir one after another. At first, she was a little unsettled, but gradually, she became numb. Miss Yin, aren't you going to sing a song for young Master Mu? Since you're here, show us what you can do. No one dared to ask Muyaja to sing, but this woman seemed easy to talk to, so they all encouraged her. Yin Shirshir pursed her lips and waved her hand. She smiled and said, I'd better not sing. Muyaja suddenly smiled and said, I want to hear it. Yin Shirshir was stunned and turned her head mechanically. No way, he's just going to undermine me like this? With Muyaja's words, everyone became bolder and more enthusiastic. Miss Yin, young Master Mu has already said, just sing one song. That's right, don't be shy. We're all on the same side. On the same side, my ass. But Yin Shirshir suddenly walked to the karaoke machine and sat down. Since Muyaja wanted to hear it, then she would take care of it. She chose Mo One Way's song, which was also Yin Shirshir's favorite and the most emotional song. The lyrics were very touching. There were many different versions of this song. She had heard Chi Chin sing it since she was young, but she preferred Mo One Way's version. She picked up a clean microphone at the side. Those men didn't spit on her. and sat on the small stage. The quiet piano music suddenly played, and the huge private room suddenly became silent. Holding the microphone, Yin Shirshir sang along with the accompaniment of the music affectionately. A long, long time ago, you owned me, and I owned you. A long, long time ago, you left me to soar in the distant sky. The outside world was very exciting. The outside world was very helpless. When you think the outside world is wonderful, I will give you my best wishes here. Every time the sun sets, I always look forward to you here. Although it was raining in the sky, I am still here, waiting for your return. Yin Shirshir's voice was very soft, but faintly revealed a sense of vicissitudes, floating, ethereal, and mellow, so it was very suitable for such a quiet song. She sang very emotionally and was very engrossed in the song. She was like an affectionate singer who used her soul to interpret the song. She sang this song as if it was her own song. Everyone was deeply attracted by this beautiful voice. Even Muyaja's eyes could not help but darken a little. The meaning of the lyrics of this song was very simple, but it was beautifully written and very sad. These people were the bosses of big companies. Some of them had inherited the family business and lived a wealthy life. When they entered society, they faced competition and were tortured to the point that they lost their pride. No matter how tired they were, they could only endure. Chapter 1000. Everyone had a disease, and that was to reminisce. It wasn't too cold at the top. Even though these people were wealthy, they all had sorrowful pasts. Thinking about this life filled with regret, sorrow, and uncertainty, it made one sigh endlessly. Even though they were all iron-blooded men and were used to the fickleness of society, no matter how hard a person's heart was, there would always be a weakness. This song couldn't help but remind them of their sorrowful pasts, and those who listened were all moved. Muyaja listened to the song, and his gaze gradually became blurry. He suddenly looked at Yin Shirshir, who was sitting on the stage. At that moment, she was sitting there quietly, and the lights were quietly shining on her body. Half of her face was buried in the shadows and couldn't be seen clearly, but he could feel a little pain from her singing. In just a moment, her singing revealed a vulnerability that was usually hard to detect, and it made people's hearts ache. After the song was finished, the room was strangely quiet. Some of the people sitting on the sofa held their foreheads and cried silently, while others held their sour noses, their eyes filled with bitterness. Yin Shirshir stood up in embarrassment. Surrounded by the lights, she couldn't see what was going on in her seat. However, just as she stepped off the stage, she was pulled into a pair of strong arms. She looked up in shock and saw Muyaja's handsome side profile. Her heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively followed her heart's desire and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. Why didn't I realize before that you can sing so well? That's because you've never heard me sing before. Suddenly, sparse applause came from the second floor. Gradually, everyone started clapping vigorously, and they were sincerely amazed by Yin Shirshir's song. Yin Shirshir then realized that they were still in the KTV, so she shyly pushed Muyaja and muttered softly, "Hey, there's someone here." At that moment, the people upstairs saw such a heartwarming scene, so they took the opportunity to encourage, "Let's sing another song. You sing so well. Master Mu, why don't you give us some face and sing a song with Miss Yin Shirshir?" Hearing this, Yin Shirshir slowly raised her head. Her eyes were bright and her cheeks were red. She said longingly, "Yes. Why don't you sing a song too? I want to hear it too." As she said this, she blinked her eyes as if she had thought of something romantic. Then she said excitedly, come on, let's sing together. Just sing I Miss You." Muyaja. This song was a duet between a man and a woman. It was sung by Gu Xingze and Su Xintian. As soon as the song was released, it reached the top of the album bestseller list. Muyaja turned his face away and said coolly, "I won't." He didn't want to sing those little love songs with lyrics like, "I love you, you love me, you love me." Yin Shirshir glared at him. How could she believe his words? "No, you definitely can. In any case, you have a management company under your name. How could a person who manages artists not know how to sing?" She even tried to goad him, but young Master Mu was dismissive of her little tricks. He glanced at her from the corner of his eyes, and said firmly, "I won't sing." Yin Shirshir looked aggrieved and resentful, but Mu Yaja ignored her. Chapter 1001. Who's going to sing this song with me? Mu Yaja listened to the melodious music in a daze. He looked at the MV on the screen and raised his eyebrows in disbelief. This stupid woman dared to sing a love song with someone else in front of him? She was asking for death. Mu Yaja turned his head coldly. His pair of cold and terrifying eyes swept across the crowd. His expression seemed to say, "Who dares to take the microphone?" It was as if whoever dared to sing this song with Yin Shirshir would be crushed by the Mu group tomorrow morning. When the crowd saw his sharp and cold eyes, they thought of their own businesses and naturally did not dare to offend this man. How would they dare to care about Yin Shirshir? The young man who sang a Chinese ghost story was about to happily take Yin Shirshir's microphone when a man who was on good terms with him immediately tugged at his sleeve and signaled to Mu Yaja with his eyes. The latter looked in the direction of his gaze and saw a certain man staring at his hand expressionlessly. His gaze was as sharp as a sword. Oh my God, so scary. It was as if he wanted to kill someone. The man was shocked. His back was soaked in cold sweat and his forehead was full of black lines. He immediately withdrew his hand. Yin Shirshir looked at him in confusion. He simply looked down and pretended to be dead. She suddenly realized something and slowly turned her head around. She saw the man's frosty gaze, which was as cold as an iceberg. This man was too domineering, wasn't he? He didn't want to sing with her, and he didn't even give her the right to find a partner. He didn't want her to sing, but she insisted on singing. Thus, in a fit of pique, Yin Shirshir sat on the sofa and started singing along with the music. One moment, she sang the boy's part in a low voice, and the next, she sang the girl's part in a high-pitched voice. She sang this little love song aggressively and fiercely, making it sound like a revolutionary march. It was as if she was about to rush to the battlefield and kill everyone in the next moment. A good song, "I Miss You," was sung to "I Want to Chop You." This time, it was everyone's turn to be in a world of ice and snow. Mu Yaja was very satisfied. When she finished singing, he didn't forget to float a sentence. "You sang very badly." Yin Shirshir was so angry that she almost threw the microphone on the sofa. When they came out of the KTV, Yin Shirshir was still a little unhappy. Mu Yaja walked in front with large strides, and she followed behind him slowly. She was unwilling, and her eyes were filled with resentment, like a resentful woman in the palace. "You're not even willing to sing with me. Mu Yaja, you're the worst." Mu Yaja walked in front and heard Yin Shirshir grumbling bitterly. She seemed to be complaining and complaining at the same time. That resentful look on his face was as if he had done something extremely heinous. It wasn't that he was unwilling, but he had never sung before. Since he was young, he had many opportunities to go to KTV or audiovisual entertainment centers, but he had never opened his mouth. When he grew up and took over the company, with his prominent position, who would dare to invite him to sing? Chapter 1002. Mu Yaja could not help curling his lips into a smile when he saw that she was still sulking. Yin Shirshir saw that there was a deeper meaning in his smile and misunderstood that he had some bad intentions or that he was unhappy with her squeamishness. Thus, she quickly put on a coquettish smile and probed, "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing." His large palm caressed her forehead. Mu Yaja smiled devilishly. "Are you still angry?" Yin Shirshir snorted coldly. "I just want to hear you sing. You can't even fulfill such a small wish of mine." Mu Yaja looked at her seriously from head to toe, as though he was disgusted. Yin Shirshir's face was completely dark. "You must be tone deaf. That's why you refuse to sing." The man raised his brows slightly. "No matter how tone deaf I am, I still sing better than you." Seeing that Yin Shirshir was silent, Mu Yaja couldn't help but smile. He reached out slightly and pulled her into his embrace with his long arms. He caressed her forehead lovingly and smiled. "All right, let's go home." Yin Shirshir couldn't help but smile because of his action. She felt sweet and satisfied. This man's palm wasn't as cold as it used to be. It was very warm. She was a little greedy for the warmth of his palm. Yin Shirshir took the initiative to reach out and grab his hand, interlocking their fingers tightly. Mu Yaja smiled and held her hand. This action warmed Yun Shirshi's heart again. She smiled and held his hand even tighter. Her heart was filled with satisfaction. She thought that it would be great if they could continue like this. She wanted time to stop at this moment when the two of them were holding hands. Late at night, it was quiet. The sky outside the window was dark. In the silence, the sound of the night breeze could be heard faintly. Xiao Yichen stealthily opened the bedroom door and leaned all the way to the master bedroom. He pressed his ear against the door and listened carefully for a while before quietly sneaking back into the bedroom. Yun Tianyu, in his casual attire, stood by the window with his hands in his trouser pockets. Xiao Yichen walked behind him and said with a smile, "Daddy and Mommy are already asleep." "Shoo!" Yun Tianyu gave him a sidelong glance and signaled, "Go and lock the door." "Yes." Little Yichen locked the bedroom door from the inside. Yun Tianyu pulled open the floor-to-ceiling window, and the two lads jumped out of the room from the balcony. They then went around the backyard and left the villa. At the entrance of the villa, Li Hanlin's car was parked quietly. Li Hanlin was called over by Yun Tianyu in the middle of the night. He could not hide his tiredness and yawned a few times. Yun Tianyu opened the car door and sat in the back seat with Xiao Yichen. Coincidentally, the little lad caught Li Hanlin's yawn and could not help raising a brow. "Agent Li, are you not awake yet?" Yu Yu's voice was deep. Li Hanlin shuddered at his words. He immediately sat up straight and pretended to be energetic. "No, I'm still energetic." "That's good." Yu Yu snorted. Xiao Yichen added, "Don't drive when you're tired." Li Hanlin broke out in a cold sweat. These two lads knew a lot. "Director Yun, where are we going?" Li Hanlin turned his head and asked with a fawning look. Yun Tianyu leaned against the back of his seat elegantly with his arms crossed. With a cold expression, he answered, "King Lin Bar. What are you going to do?" Li Hanlin saw that his eyes were cold, and he seemed to be aggressive. "You're in charge of driving." Chapter 1003. Xiao Yichen sneered, clenched his fists, and flexed his muscles. "Uncle, we don't have much time. We have to rush back in 2 hours. Don't dawdle." Li Hanlin's lips twitched violently. He stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped away. Just as the car reached the entrance of the bar, Li Hanlin was frightened by the lineup before him. Not far from the bar's entrance stood a few hooligans. They looked like delinquents. At a glance, there were about a dozen of them. They looked rather stylish. Hooligans? Li Hanlin was still in disbelief when he saw Yun Tianyu push open the door and get out of the car with Xiao Yichen. "Director Yun, where are you going?" "Wait in the car. Don't follow me." Yun Tianyu turned around and gave this order. Even though Li Hanlin was full of doubts, he still obeyed the order and waited in the car. Yun Tianyu and Xiao Yichen walked over. Li Dongxiang saw them and immediately welcomed them with a fawning smile. "Little brother, you're here? Why are there so many people here?" Yun Tianyu frowned, clearly surprised. Li Dongxiang pursed his lips and smilingly said, "I'm afraid that we don't have enough manpower. It's okay. We're all brothers. It's no big deal to have more people here. It's a show of strength." He paused, raised his eyebrows, and carefully probed, "Little brother, are you looking for me to teach someone a lesson?" Yun Tianyu suddenly lowered his head expressionlessly and casually took out a Givenchy wallet. Li Dongxiang's eyes widened at the sight. This wallet was exquisitely made and seemed to be a branded one. It must be worth a lot. Looking at the thick stack of cash in the wallet, Li Dongxiang's mouth watered even more. This little guy was really not simple. He carried so much cash with him everywhere. Li Dongxiang's eyes involuntarily revealed a greedy look. Yun Tianyu coldly glanced at him, and Li Dongxiang guiltily retracted his gaze. Li Dongxiang took out a check that had already been filled in, but had yet to be signed. However, when Li Dongxiang received it and saw the generous amount on the check, he was shocked. His mouth watered. "So much? You think it's too much?" Yun Tianyu raised a brow. "It's nothing. Money can only be too little. How can it be too much?" Li Dongxiang said with a flattering smile. At the same time, he secretly verified the authenticity of the check. "You don't have to look at it. Do you think I'll give you a fake check?" Yun Tianyu seemed to have seen through his suspicions. "The check hasn't been signed yet." Yun Tianyu gave a concise reply. "Once you've settled this matter, We'll be even. Good. Then, what orders do you have? Li Dongxiang rubbed his hands and asked. Yun Tianyu suddenly fished out a Sony DV from his backpack and tossed it to him. Li Dongxiang caught it and lowered his head to look at the DV in his hand. He was a little confused. This is, cut the crap and listen to my instructions, he ordered. Li Dongxiang didn't dare to say anything. It was late at night. Some youths began to stagger out of the bar one after another. The unrestrained nightlife was over. It was time to return to the nest. Lu Jingtian was already dead drunk by the time she was helped out. Chapter 1004. Many of Yin Shishir's fans even meticulously watched every detail of the show and made gifs of all the little tricks she had done to Yin Shishir, which went viral on Weibo. Following this, netizens began to denounce her with righteous indignation. Many of them even dug out her family background. As a newcomer who had just debuted, her acting skills had always been questioned. Ostracizing fellow actors and bullying newcomers, netizens dug up all kinds of things about her past. As such, the army of public opinion crushed her pitiful fan club overnight. No matter how the PR team behind her tried to clear her name, the netizens did not seem to buy it. Instead, they accused her of using Yin Shishir to hype herself up. Hype. She used Yin Shishir to hype herself up? She was really wronged in this regard. Indeed, artistes needed exposure. Many would even use scandals to hype themselves up. Lu Jingtian was different, though. She had always been very concerned about her image in front of the public. Her team also intended to create an image of her as a pure starlet, trying their best to cover up her dark spots so that she could present a better side to the public. Unfortunately, she did not live up to expectations. Her scandals exploded on the internet one after another. It was simply one after another, too many to enumerate. Lu Jingtian has no acting skills to speak of. She's not even worthy of being called a vase. She's so ugly and unrecognizable. One look at her nose and eyes, and you can tell that she's based on a baby. The key is that she hasn't done the surgery yet. How can she compare to Shishir? She's quite scheming, huh? Doge, at the very least. Vases are good-looking and exquisite. How can that ugly woman be called a vase? Don't insult a vase. Is it that exaggerated? I've seen the trailer for The Green Apple, and she looks pretty good in it. That's just makeup, okay? I saw her bare-faced face in a candid photo taken at the airport. It's unspeakably ugly. She looks like an old woman without makeup. The reason why she can get so many resources when she debuted is because her father is a senior executive in Huanyu. This is a classic example of opening the back door. I heard that when Lu Jingtian debuted in the past, she wanted to tie her name to Gu Xingze for publicity purposes. Gu Xingze didn't even look at her. Nonsense. If Gu Xingze and Lu Jingtian are tied together to create hype, it'll be so degrading. Gu Xingze is wise. If Lu Jingtian uses him to create hype, he'll lose millions of fans. Annie Lu, you're so ugly. On Weibo, forums, and Tieba, there are different versions of her scandal every day. In fact, there were plenty of actresses in the entertainment industry who were more scheming than her. They usually kept a low profile and carefully hid their flaws. Alas, this time, she could not avoid it because she was truly stupid. The Green Apple had not yet been released, but it had already gathered a large number of fans of the original novel. As the winter/summer couple, many fans of the original novel were very supportive of Gu Xingze and Yin Shishir being a couple. Lu Jingtian had interfered and ostracized Yin Shishir on the show. Was she not inviting criticism for herself? Chapter 1005. As a result, she was in a bad mood these few days. She spent several nights at the bar, feeling dispirited. Her friend helped her to the door when she suddenly felt her insides churning. Pushing her friend away, she stumbled to the entrance of the alley and vomited while leaning against the wall. Her friend frowned. Accompanying this willful missy out for a drink was really a tough task. He walked to the intersection and hailed a taxi, but she was nowhere to be seen. He could not help but feel strange. When he reached the entrance of the alley, a fishy smell hit him in the face. He immediately covered his nose and mouth and shone his phone's flashlight on the ground, only to see a puddle of vomit on the ground. Beside it, A bag had fallen to the ground. He picked up the bag. It belonged to her, but she was nowhere to be found. Where did she go? He looked all around, but couldn't find her. He was immediately frustrated. A black car sped along the road. Li Dongxiang's eyes darted to the rearview mirror as he drove. Yin Tianyu sat in the front passenger seat, while Xiao Yiqin sat in the back seat. Beside him was the unconscious Lu Jingtian. She lay limp in the seat with her hands and legs tied tightly with ropes. Her eyes and mouth were covered with a black cloth. Li Dongxiang was deeply shocked. Is this a kidnapping? How exciting. This lad is so daring at such a young age. Although he was in the triad, he was, at best, a hooligan. He had done many petty thefts, but there were some things he dare not do. Even though he had killed people before, they were all civilians. He looked at this woman, who was dressed in branded clothes and seemed to be rich, and could not help but feel nervous. He was a typical bully and feared the strong. He was most afraid of offending big shots that he should not offend. He had learned his lesson from offending Yin Shirshir the last time. Thus, he asked, "If we do this, won't we blow things up? What are you afraid of?" Yin Tianyu gave him a sidelong glance and casually asked, "You're so timid, yet you're still in the triad?" Li Dongxiang replied resentfully, "Although I'm in the triad, I still haven't made a name for myself. I have to take a detour whenever I meet those big shots." At this moment, he was completely unaware that there was a major character sitting beside him. Although this big shot was a little young, Yin Tianyu snorted and did not bother with him again. Li Dongxiang still wanted to say something, but Yin Tianyu cut him off impatiently. "Cut the crap. I'm letting you do this so naturally, I can ensure that nothing happens to you." His tone was like that of a king. Shockingly, Dongxiang. We're all kids these days, so powerful. His methods were even more professional than his. Xiao Yiqin, who was standing behind him, seemed to have transformed into Yu Yu's little fanboy. This little brother of his was really amazing. His style of doing things was just like his father, ruthless and merciless. He liked it. He turned to look at Lu Jingtian and snorted. He didn't like people who bullied his mommy. Therefore, he would not show any mercy. The car sped to a stop on E Street. Li Dongxiang, who was guarding a gambling den, alighted from the car and carried her into a small, dark room inside. As soon as he entered the room, Li Dongxiang threw him onto the bed. The bed was made of metal and was very hard. Li Dongxiang did not go easy on her. With a toss and a bump, she woke up with a start. However, perhaps because she had drunk so much, she was still drunk and had yet to recover her senses. Chapter 1006. A basin of cold water was the first to splash on her. The piercing coldness made her more clear-headed, and she opened her eyes abruptly. The black cloth covering her eyes fell off. Her vision slowly overlapped and became clear again. The dark room was airtight, and only a weak chandelier was lit. Hence, she could not see clearly where she was at that moment. The chandelier was an ordinary chandelier. It swayed gently from time to time, causing the room to flicker with light and shadow. It reminded one of the classic scenes in horror movies. Lu Jingtian shuddered in fright and sat up abruptly on the bed. Unaware that her limbs were tied up, she lost her balance and rolled off the bed. Ugh, she cried out in pain. Li Dongxiang glanced at her coldly and signaled with his eyes. His men walked forward and threw her back on the bed. Ugh, ugh, ugh. She opened her mouth in shock, but it was gagged, so she could not make any sound. She could only whimper as if she were begging for mercy. Yin Tianyu and Xiao Yiqin entered the room as well. Li Dongxiang immediately ordered someone to bring a sofa chair over. Yin Tianyu sat on it and slowly raised his head to meet Lu Jingtian's frightened eyes. When Lu Jingtian saw Yin Tianyu and little Yiqin, for some reason, her fear faded a little. It was hard for people to be wary of those weaker than them. She was still wondering who had kidnapped her here, but when she saw Yin Tianyu and little Yiqin, she was no longer so afraid. Instead, her tense emotions relaxed a little. Still, it was not without surprises. How could it be these two rascals? Were they the ones who tied her up and brought her here? How did these two rascals manage to do it? What did these strange, ferocious-looking men have to do with the two children? She was full of doubts. In her eyes, Yun Tianyu and Little Chen were merely 7-year-old children. They had not even graduated from kindergarten, so they could not do anything to her. She only saw this inexplicable scene as a farce. Alas, she was wrong. Some people looked weak, but they were not necessarily weak. On the contrary, it could be very powerful. Yin Tianyu glanced at her. His eyes were extremely cold, and his face was filled with disgust. He stared at her and asked, "Are you awake?" His voice was so cold that it was as if 10,000 feet of ice had frozen over. Lu Jingtian nervously shook her head subconsciously, but when she realized what he was asking, she hesitantly nodded her head. Little Chen sneered from the side. "Bad woman." Lu Jingtian was infuriated. Just as she was about to lash out at him, she realized that her mouth was gagged and could only let out a few muffled moans. Yin Tianyu ordered, "Let her talk." Thus, Li Dongxiang walked forward and removed the gag from her mouth. Lu Jingtian was finally able to speak, and the first thing she said was explosive. "Hey, you two brats, what are you trying to do? Why did you tie me up and bring me here? What kind of game are you playing with me?" She was originally dead drunk. After vomiting out a stomach full of filth, she had just sobered up a little when she was knocked out by a stick. When he woke up, he was splashed with a basin of ice water. Naturally, he became more clear-headed. However, the alcohol did not completely subside. She spoke very harshly in her drunken state. Chapter 1007. "Hurry and loosen the rope. Let me go home," she demanded fiercely, purely trying to scare them. Yin Tianyu smiled. "The game isn't over yet. How can I let you go home?" Lu Jingtian was taken aback by his mature tone and cold words. "If you two rascals continue to mess around, I'll tell your daddy." "Huh." Yin Tianyu sneered and then leisurely said, "Fine. Go ahead and sue them." She was stunned. "Aren't you afraid that your daddy will spank you?" She clearly did not realize what was going on, so she was at a loss for a moment. What were these two rascals up to? "Xiao Chen, isn't she disgusting?" Yin Tianyu suddenly turned his head and asked. Xiao Chen spat. "She's disgusting." He paused for a moment before adding, "Anyone who bullies mommy is guilty of the most heinous crime." Finally, he used the right idiom. This was not the main point, though. The main point was that there was no need to hide the murderous look in Xiao Chen's eyes. She was frightened by his gaze. "What are you guys trying to do? Thanks to you, mommy has 32 wounds on her body. Today, I'll pay you back double." With that, Xiao Chen stepped forward and grabbed his mother's hair. In the past, he was extremely disdainful of using such despicable means like grabbing someone's hair. However, his younger brother said that he would give her a taste of her own medicine. Since his mommy's hair was ripped off, there was no need for him to be merciful. He wanted this evil woman to have a taste of the pain of having her hair ripped off. Lu Jingtian shrieked in pain at the sharp pain coming from her scalp. "Ah, what are you guys trying to do? Let go. It's painful." Xiao Chen did not waste any more words. He grabbed her hair and threw her to the floor. She did not know where this kid got his strength from. She weighed more than 50 kilograms, yet he lifted her with one hand. "What are you guys doing?" she shrieked. Her ear-piercing scream reverberated through the room. "So noisy." Yin Tianyu frowned in disgust. Li Dongxiang immediately understood and stepped forward to cover her mouth again. Xiao Chen said angrily, "Bad woman, you know pain too, but I saw that when you bullied my mommy, you didn't hold back either." Lu Jingtian continued to whimper, as if she finally understood that the two were here for revenge and realized the seriousness of matter. Xiao Chen was about to make a move when he saw the woman's face, which was filled with fear and hatred, and suddenly felt awkward. He suddenly put down his fist and returned to Yu Yu's side with a gloomy expression. He pouted and looked unhappy. "What's wrong?" Yu Yu glanced at her. "Disgusting. My hands are dirty," Xiao Chen said with a frown. "Besides, if I touch her, her bones will fall apart." These words were not wrong. Xiao Chen's punch was equivalent to 80% of a grown man's strength. What kind of concept was that? If he punched her more than 20 times, she would surely have a few broken bones. Moreover, he was a man. It was rather ungentlemanly for a man to hit a woman. He was not like that Song Yun-shi, who was ungentlemanly. Lu Jingtian inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief when Xiao Yichen stopped hitting her. Yin Tianyu glanced at Li Dongxiang and said, "You can go ahead." Lu Jingtian's eyes widened in horror. She did not know what was in store for her.